What is up, everybody? It's time for the maze event. Oh, joy. I did a little bit of it off stream earlier just to kind of get some of the beginning stupid shit out of the way, but I'm not that far in at all. Yeah, they buffed Kiara, because of course they did, and then they buffed Thickcaster. I don't really like Kiara's buff at all, though, because it's like now she just does everything. It's like it's such a boring servant now. It used to be like, you know, she was really utility based. Now it's like she just does everything. It's like she has, you know, good damage and a lot of utility, and it's just like, eh. I just find designs like that kind of boring. I would prefer they double down more on the utility side of things. Like that boy does though. And Thickcaster got a battery, 30% battery on her first skill. Which really wasn't necessary either, but you know, what are you gonna do? I cannot believe that they did not update Matahari again. It's like it's just such biasm to the bronze, man. It's like, she's pretty popular, she's been in the game since day one. She's fairly important in this event. And this is the rerun, and you still haven't updated her. Kind of like Sanson showing up in the main story multiple times and never getting an update either. Maybe with the anniversary. Man, I don't know how many of those hearts I have, but I know it's a lot, and there's no way that I actually need this loot, but what are you gonna do? Yeah, Hans could use a buff. At least Uriel and Steno, we know we're getting an animation update. Like, they confirmed that, you know, it's in the works. They just haven't finished it yet or added it to the game or whatever. But they are getting one because they showed it off on the stream a while ago. A long time ago now, though. Dude, that's actually the longest it's ever been. Normally when they confirm an animation update and they show off their Noble Phantasm on stream, you know, normally it's in within the next event or the next event, right? They showed off Uriel and Steno before Lost Belt 5 Part 2. Before Lost Belt 5 Part 2. And that was a while ago. Like, that was quite a while ago. Heaven's Field fucking never. Yeah, I guess they're just... I suspect that the animation updates are done. Like, it's even finished, and they're just not going to add them until the Heaven's Field thing. Hey, Saber Nero. Thank you for the resub for 27 months. That's a big one. Alright, what are we doing here? So I want to get Angra and Coupon, but they're kind of hard to do. I mean, these stages, you can't, like, there's no point in even, like, trying to solo them or anything. They're kind of whatever. Can we do with Angra, though? He'll really slow this down. Do I need Angra Bond that badly? Like, is it... This is not a good idea. But, I mean, what could possibly go wrong here? I should really be summoning somebody that has a bonus CE. Nah. Someone is going to die. Hey, Looking Glass, thank you for the 25 bits. I'm trying to get Bond is the most important, then Angra, and then I want to get Canis and Mori high enough that if they ever add an event where it's Bond related, they'll, you know, do well. But I don't really care if they get Bond 10 specifically. I mean, Emiya has a defense ignore NP and he's got buffed. It's also an oddly specific criteria there. Yeah, that's gonna save us. That NP drain, boys. Oh yeah, Shiki and Farsis, yeah. Dude, Shiki's buff was nuts. By the way, Angra's Bond 9, so he's getting there. After Angra, I guess I would start working on Hans, I guess, because Hans' Von CE is actually good. I don't know, when we do buff stacking nonsense, it would be nice to have like Caesar or Alexander at Bond 10. That's not outside of though buff stacking and just doing stupid shit. It's not very practical, right? It's not something I would really need out, maybe outside of like raid farming that comes up every once in a while. I like how I'm just ignoring Angra's cards. I have got to fix Ku's Bond CE, not Bond. Well, if I could fix Ku's Bond CE, that would be great, because it's trash, but I need to fix Ku's command codes, but I'm gonna wait until I actually go to make a video for him. There's no point in respecing it and potentially running into a boss that I need to respec for, so I want to respec twice. I don't know why I'm trying to save Angra. This would actually be easier if he wasn't here. Also feels bad. The meter fills for all kinds of reasons, like if you use the Mystic Code, if you clear rooms and stuff. It is ultimately completely irrelevant though, because when you get to the end of the event, you can just arbitrarily fill it up or drain it. So it doesn't matter at all. It's one of those things where they try to act like it's a big thing and get everyone all hype and stuff, and it is just completely irrelevant. And Ku's getting really close to Bond 13. I think he's like 80k away or something like that. Hey look, free SQ though. So they've made this event less frustrating. It's still annoying and there's still so much filler crap. But at least there's no more loading screens on those stages that had no story and had no gameplay. And you might ask, well, what's a stage 4 if it has no story or no gameplay? And the answer is I don't know. It's actually there to waste your AP. There's stages that cost 1 AP and they do nothing. You get no loot, you do no battle, you see no story. You just lose an AP, just because. And before, there used to be a loading screen for those. Thankfully, they don't have that anymore. I remember at some point in this event, I want to say it's on the 2nd or 3rd floor, there's a point where you go through like 8 or 9 nodes where you don't see any story or any gameplay. It is ridiculous. Like, I don't mind a stage that's like just there for the story, right? That's fine. When it's not for either, it's like, why? You see, like that used to have a loading screen. Now it has a little bit of loading there, like the connecting, but it used to have to go into a fucking loading screen, which was just, you have to be kidding me. And then see, look, and then here's another one. It's like, oh great! Like, you'd literally have to go through 2 loading screens for this before. Excuse me, 3! Like, what? Can someone explain to me what is the point of this? Right, I just lost 3 AP and nothing happened. Like, what is that? Like, what is that? That's so stupid. Like, just go to the node. Like, I don't need to simulate walking down a fucking hallway by spending 3 AP and having the connecting screen. Now imagine how annoying, like, all that, it's still annoying. Like, surprise, surprise, event is still annoying, right? But imagine having to go into a goddamn loading screen each time you did that. It's just ridiculous, man. This event is like the ultimate filler padding event ever. Like, it's absolutely nuts. All right, this team makes absolutely no sense, but we're doing it because I want my Bond, and Ricky Boy's awesome, and he has a bonus CE, so screw it. Do we not have the Mystic Code yet? I guess we don't. I don't really care what I bring. Everything I care about is already rank 10, and I really just cannot be bothered to like get this to rank 10 because I don't care. It is noticeably better than it was before. Like, it is. but it's still bad. It's kind of like they made Go West better, but it's still bad. I don't know how that design just made it through. Like, I do not understand. I remember on my regular ult account, I one-shot this guy on turn 1 with Gwen because he got like quick buster turn, and he killed it. Let's see how much damage Ricky can do here. Probably not enough to one-shot it by any means, but especially because he doesn't have a buster card. I'm in such two minds about my Ricky. Part of me wants to grail him because he's awesome, but the other part of me likes keeping him at 70 because he's so useful at 70, right? And it's nice to like have 70s in videos sometimes. I feel like if I was left to my own devices and I didn't make videos and stuff, I would just grail like such a large army of 1 to 3 stars. And then when I'd go to do like 1 to 3 star setups, almost all of them would be grailed. Like that's probably what would happen. Which would actually be awesome, but you know. Yeah, leveling 2 is just such a pain. I can't justify... Like Ku is such a good example. I want a 70 Ku that's 10-10-10, but then you look at the just ungodly amount of hero proofs he takes, and like for the one copy of him that you're going to actively use, it's worth it, sure. But when you already have one, and he's already, you know, level 100 and everything, and it's like, am I really going to waste all of these hero proofs on this? And I just don't, because it's stupid, right? That's always what happens when I try to level a second character on the same account. I'm doing good, other than, you know, this fucking event, but what are you gonna do? I don't remember if we actually need to do the free quest right now or not, but I mean, it does give an apple. I think we can bring an actual team for this, but I actually kind of want to just solo it because I don't know what the stage drops, so I'm out. You know what, I highly doubt... Oh, here we go, we'll do that. Maybe that happens to be the drop. But I highly doubt that I'm gonna just happen to bring the CE for like what drops, so it doesn't matter too much. So I know I had this CE from last year, but apparently I burned it because I don't have another copy of it. But I know I completed this event last year, so I only because they give you 1 3-star CE like at the beginning, and I clearly burned it or something at some point because I don't have it anymore, like the original. Oh yeah, Fate Extra remake, which I think has the same gameplay. That's what it looked like. It's hard to say from the trailer, but it really looks like it has the same gameplay. The graphics are just better, like the battle animations are fancier, but it looks like it's the same paper, rock, scissors thing again. It doesn't? I hope not, because I know I saw the same symbols and everything, and like the whole blocking thing that happened in the trailer looked like pretty much like the same thing. But I hope it's completely... I hope it has nothing in common with the original gameplay-wise. Like, I hope the symbols and everything is purely an aesthetic similarity, and there's absolute... Because I suspect this is what it is. That it... from what I saw from the trailer and what y'all are saying right now, I honestly think it's still going to be very similar to the original gameplay, and they're going to just, because it's famous for having such trash gameplay, they're going to try to act like it's really different, but ultimately it's still the same. Like, I bet you it's still paper, rock, scissors. It's just you have like a deck of paper, rock, scissors. There's already games like that. There's literally already games like that have like a paper, rock, scissors system, but you don't what you get to pick from is just based on a deck, right? I really think they're gonna do something stupid like that, right? Like nothing about that trailer gave me any confidence, and that they're really gonna put a lot of effort into the gameplay, which is foolish. They should. I hope I am wrong so much, and the gameplay is like way better, because Fate Extra has just. It's famous for having terrible gameplay. Nobody likes the fucking gameplay in that game, right? And it's so famous for that. If you're gonna remake it, if you don't like completely overhaul the gameplay, something is wrong with you. Like, that game should not have a combat system even remotely resembling the original Fate Extra. It should have nothing in common with it because it's that bad. Let's go Jet Keto. Why not? What could possibly go wrong here? We're not going to give her the event CE just because. go deeps. But I get so tired of this because I feel like fans fall for this stuff all the time, and this isn't like a universal truth or anything, but like so often game companies will lie or manipulate the truth, and they're trying to make something sound more grandiose than it is. And it's not always with something like this specifically, but they do stuff like this all the time. So let's say, for example, this may not be the case, but let's say that this Fate Extra remake has very similar gameplay. Let's say it does, and it may not, but let's say it does, just for sake of argument here. Because a lot of games will do this kind of thing, regardless of if Fate Extra does it or not. A lot of games do this kind of thing. So they'll basically use the same combat system with really minor changes, but when they're marketing, they're gonna say, oh yeah, we remade the combat system. And like technically they remade it, but they remade it in a way that's very similar to the original, right? Like that happens so often. Developers and publishers and marketing teams, they will try to make something sound way more grandiose and way more, you know, revolutionary, when a lot of times it's fucking nothing. This happens all of the time. And what drives me nuts is how, like, fans just eat it up, right? And it's like, have we not learned, like how often publishers lie or manipulate information to make things sound like way grander than they are? Now, in this case specifically, you know, I don't know what's going to go on with the combat system in the remake, and I hope it's has nothing in common with the original, but honestly from the trailer I'm not buying that it's completely different and way better. I am just not buying that. That looked insanely similar. Like I just off what I've seen and what Chad has said, my initial reaction is it's probably just the original combat system, except the actions you get to pick from, you know, come out of the deck, and then there's probably some other minor changes here and there. But that's what it looks like from like the trailer, very much so. At no point I'm like, oh my god, this is totally different, and it's clearly going to be way more awesome and blah 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 blah. Like it just looks like the original combat system with fancy visuals slapped onto it, which that does not fix the mechanical failure that it was. Yeah, Stella isn't complex either. That's like another super fucking stupid game, like gameplay wise. And like another game where I have warning signs everywhere is that Demon Souls remake. Like the wording in the marketing just reeks of, by the way, we're making sure we're not saying anything that will like tie us to something legally, or we're trying to like give the impression that it's just going to be such a facelift, right? Like the gameplay is going to be totally different and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. Because like here's how you actually convince people. Hey guys, remember that game we made a long time ago that had horrible gameplay? And hey look, we're making it better. This is how you convince people. You actually show and explain the gameplay, right? That's how you convince people. And then when they don't do that, that normally reeks of they're hiding something. Also, it's probably in their best interest to keep the gameplay stupid as fuck. It's, you know, appealing to a wide audience and all that wonderful stuff. So the shitty thing is, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna kill both of these. I'm gonna hope the 46k one somehow lives, and I get to do quick. Oh, there is a video of the go over the game. Well, that's good. What I was saying kind of is just a broad statement, like for Demon Souls and everything else, and fucking all the other remakes that get made all the time. I mean, like I said, I hope the gameplay is way better, but I'll check that out later. Because I'll tell you right now, I would like to stream that just because, you know, we talk about Fate all the time here, so it'd be nice to like stream it and check it out with the stream and stuff. But if the gameplay is not significantly better, there's no way I'm streaming it. There's no way I'm even buying it. Like, not a chance. Also, goddamn it, she killed everything. Yeah, Kiara's only in CCC. I mean, she exists in the Fate Extra universe, but you never see her, and she's just a normal person. Nothing ever happens. That sounds like so much fluff, King. That still sounds exactly the same, except it's a deck in a random order. That sounds like such PR fluff there. Like, they're like, oh, you gotta pick the right strategy. I guarantee you, it's still like a, you know, like attack, special, defend, that kind of thing, and they have a rock, paper synergy, and you have to, the enemy just has a certain deck, so they use certain actions more often than not, and things like that. And so you build a deck that's like that still sounds so similar. Like, I've played so many deck building games, and like from what it's not like in the trailer, it's not like there's like a million different types of decks. They literally only showed like 3 or 4 actions. No, it's not, because the effects that the cards in FGO have are so different from like the kind of effects you would have in Fate Extra. And from the trailer and stuff, these still had effects going off very similar to what were in Fate Extra. Like the way they were synergizing looked extremely similar. Because I'm sorry, that even if this remake has a really different combat system, what you just said is wrong. Like, that's not FGO's combat system. Because it's not like, oh, I picked a quick card and then a buster, then a quick, and then they pick these cards, and so they're gonna have this interact. That's not what happens at all, right? FGO is a way more classical turn-based game where like you pick these actions and they're gonna have a set, you know, impact on the thing you're fighting, and they have their set actions. You know, the main interaction you have with each other is your skills. Like, oh, he's got an evade and I attacked into an evade, right? It's stuff like that. That's just not like the same kind of use of a deck system at all. Now, again, I don't know what the remake of Fate Extra's combat system is going to be like, but what's just described there is not like FGO in the slightest. Like, that's not similar. There's nothing about like picking your deck in FGO that's going to have anything to do with like it synergizing with the opponent you're fighting. It doesn't work like that in the slightest. I'm sorry, Rex, but no, like that is such a superficial connection. It's like, yeah, there's a basic connection in that you have a deck and it shuffles and stuff, sure, but the way you're picking the cards and how they're interacting with the enemy is not even remotely similar. I mean, in this case, they might be similar because I don't know what the Fate Extra combat system is, but what's being explained there, like, that is such a... I played... Like, that's like saying Hearthstone is similar to FGO, right? It's not! Like, yeah, but you both have cards and the deck is shuffled and you draw at random. That doesn't mean Hearthstone's combat system is even remotely applicable to FGO's. They're completely different. That doesn't mean it's better or worse either. You know, like the Fate Extra remake could be better. That's not my point. But just because there's a deck and it's shuffled and you draw at random, that has nothing to do with like how the effect the cards have on the opponent and stuff. It's not basically though. Like that's not even remote. That's like saying, oh yeah, Hearthstone is basically like FGO's combat system. It's not. Like, it's just not. That's way too superficial. That's like saying Modern Warfare is basically the same as Metroid Prime, just because they're both from the first-person perspective. But the way they actually play out, and like what your abilities do, and the way the first person's even being used is so different. That's such a weak connection. And again, maybe the extra game does end up being very similar to FGO's combat system, but the way that the actions are playing out in the trailer is essentially the same way interactions play out in the original game. No, that's not really a bit. Rex, explain to me how that's a bigger leap. Like, how is that a bigger leap between FGO and Hearthstone and like any other card game combat system? Because there's so many card game combat systems, and a lot of them are extremely different. They almost all of them will have the thing in common of you have a deck and it shuffles, but that's right now that's the only connection I'm seeing, and that's like, for instance, you know, what's called the Spire game. I forgot the name of it. Excuse me. But like that Spire game, that's also a card game, and it has the same connection you made to FGO is the same connection that Spire game has. Slay the Spire, thank you. The same connection Slay the Spire has to FGO, but again, they're not similar at all. There's like I don't know. Oh God, I'm gonna date myself here, but there's a really old Dragon Ball Z game. I think it was like on the Game Boy Color or some shit. That was also like a card game battle system and everything, and your deck shuffled and you drew from the deck and everything, but again, has nothing to do with, like, it just plays out so differently from FGO. Dude, that is such an old game, by the way, and I don't even remember the name of it. So that was the thing. And again, maybe they're going to make the combat system really close to FGO. Not that I think it needs to be. It's not like FGO is the pinnacle of combat systems. Just to be real, or not even close. But simply saying you pick a deck, and then the deck is shuffled, and you pull from that deck, that does not. That's nothing. Like that's a nothing burger. Like that could result in any manner of combat systems, like a combat system like Slay the Spire, or a combat system like Hearthstone, or a combat system like FGO, or a combat system like that Dragon Ball Z game. Like that's such a loose connection that doesn't mean very much, right? Like what those cards actually do and how they interact with the enemy and how many different cards there are is what's really going to determine like what kind of combat system that actually is. Yeah, right now the original Fate Extra is not card-based at all. I agree, but you could still transfer its combat system into a card-based system very easily. All those actions, which is ultimately rock paper scissors, all those rock paper scissors things you could pick could just be assigned to a card, and then which ones you get to pick from is just based on what you draw, right? You can easily do that kind of thing, and like that whole interaction with the enemy based on what they picked and stuff could all still happen. And that's what it looks like it's happening in the trailer, and I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. You know, the way the different cards match up based on what you picked versus what they picked. All of that could still play out, you know, if it's a card-based game system. And I actually think it'd be much worse if you did it that way. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is because I don't know. I'm just saying them saying it's a card-based system does not instantly dispel, oh, it can't be anything like Fate Extra then. It must be more like FGO or something. Like, it doesn't imply that at all. Because a lot of combat systems can be transferred into a card game format, like very much so. Because, for example, you know, let's say they pick block or they pick this or whatever. You know, it doesn't matter if that was something you could pick every turn or if it was something that was random. It's still not going to change the actual interaction. Now, it might, you know, it might change like how the overall flow of the gameplay is, obviously, but like the actual interactions and systems don't necessarily have to change. Now, they might change, right? They might change, and I hope they do, but that doesn't dispel a damn thing. It's not actually a loading screen this time. Now it's a connection screen, which is legitimately much shorter and does much better, but. Because with FGO specifically, like I said, the card system is way more one-sided. First of all, the enemy technically doesn't even have a card system, even though they mimic certain things, like, oh, they did a buster attack or they did a quick attack. But, you know, it's not like, oh, I picked my actions and they picked their actions, and how do those interact? You know, it's more like, you know, they have certain skills activated already, and that's going to affect things like, you know, they might have defense up or crit up or blah, 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 blah. And I pick these actions, and how's that going to interact with it, and that kind of thing. So it's way more about, like, how your skills interact, and then you just individually pick your own cards, and, you know, that's way more. Also, the card system in FGO is really simplistic because the deck is so small. But it's so small. FGO really isn't a card game at all. It's more like, hey, these units have these, you know, these actions and they're mixed up, right? Cards are more of a symbolism in FGO because you ultimately have 15 actions, you know, 5 per character. The main similarity is just the shuffling, you know, the randomness of it, but it's barely a card game. And a lot of card games are like, to be honest, a lot of quote-unquote card games nowadays are like that, where they actually don't have, you know, they're not that much like a card game. And that's actually why I used Hearthstone as an example, because Hearthstone, although it'd be a little difficult, could theoretically be played in real life with just, you know, straight cards and everything. And you wouldn't really have to break out like a lot of pen and paper stuff, because with pen and paper you could actually emulate almost any mechanic. But anyway, and, you know, it's a more traditional card game. Obviously, there's a lot of extra stuff, you know, added on stuff and, you know, effects and, you know, hero powers and all that. But, like, you know, it's a fairly card game, if you will, where, you know, FGO is just, you know, not at all, and as is many other card games. What am I doing right now? Okay, the 5 AP ones are normally, like, kind of harder. So now I have to pick between, do I bring someone that has an event CE, and if I want to be like practical, or do I want to like solo and stuff? I guess I'll be practical because these stages aren't hard enough anyway, and we're already bringing Ongra for God's sake, so. Yeah, I know, it would be very hard to make Hearthstone a physical thing because, you know, there's a lot of like interactions and, you know, and stuff. It'd be a pain in the ass, but it's definitely possible. And it technically would be possible for FGO too, I suppose. It just, that'd be awful. Like, that would really be awful trying to... But honestly, a lot of combat systems you could put on paper, especially if they don't have like a movement element. You know, anything that's turn-based can be put into like a board game or a card game setting if you want to. And even a lot of games that have like a 3D movement element, like a live-action movement element, like a shooter or you know, an MMO or something, you could still mimic the combat system on paper, like the math that's going on, like, oh, you're doing this much damage, this much defense, blah, 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 blah. It would just, you know, lose quite a bit in translation. I mean, you can mimic RNG. You can mimic RNG on paper and stuff like that. It's just a huge pain in the ass. I would never want to try to mimic Hearthstone in real life, or a lot of the other like card games that are out there now on digital. Yeah, it's not practical. That's the way to do it. It's technically possible. It'd just be extremely impractical. It's like, but why though? The thing is, even if they add cards, you can still mimic that. Like, there's even that's actually predates digital card games. A lot of physical card games did that too, and you would just have like a side deck or whatever, and then you just put the thing in. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. Like, if you try hard enough, you can mimic just about anything, right? It's just it's slow. It's really slow, and it's not a good idea. And that's like why a lot of like tabletop games like D&D or something, you know, they have the freedom to do so many things because you can just add something and write something and you know, that kind of thing. It's possible. It's just a lot of steps. I'm not sure why I'm bothering to remove that debuff because it doesn't really matter, and also this is the final enemy apparently, so these stages though. Hey, wife. I'm actually trying to think of my favorite card game battle system now, and I'm drawing a lot of blanks, because like a lot of card games now, like I said, aren't really card games. It's more of a symbolism thing. They're more using like the idea of a card to represent something, because it's easy for us to understand. But a lot of times it's not. But you know, even in real life, there's such variety in card games, even in like the really older card games and stuff. So. But hey, this might the good thing about all this is maybe we get Savor because of this. Wouldn't that be nice? Yu-Gi-Oh has kind of turned into Solitaire from what I've seen. It'll be so sad though if they do this remake and then they still never add Saber to anything. They might do that. We'll see. I don't think they would replace Saver from the Fate Extra game itself, because that would be too much work, and like that would change the story a lot. I mean, you could do it, right? It's not like it's impossible. You could do it. I don't think that they would. The only way that they would is if they really fear the controversy that much, right? But I suspect he would still be in the Fate Extra remake, and then he just wouldn't be in FGO even if he did do like a collab or a promotion event or something like that. He just wouldn't be used again. So, and like he just won't be added to another video game. Like if they do something similar to Fate Extella Link or something, he just wouldn't be in that. I think Charlemagne is going to get used in FGO at some point, though. Probably, I suspect they've already determined a story or a side story or something, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll use him for that. That would be my guess. Like, it's not very logical for them not to put him in at some point, because he's decently popular and everything, and he's not controversial. Like, he's just not controversial. It's not like them adding Buddha or something. It's not controversial at all, so... It's because Saber's Buddha, and some people get really uppity about that kind of thing, which is funny because the original teachings of Buddha and stuff aren't even a religion and whatnot. So I truly do not get the big deal, but it's a vocal minority of people though, basically just wanting to get offended. I don't think the populace at large actually cared at all, but you get a vocal minority that's loud enough, and a lot of times publishers get scared and you know, don't want to use that thing again or whatever. By the way, I could NP forever ago. I just didn't. But really, if you twinked the FGO combat system, you could make it actually very similar to the original Fate Extra in many ways. Like, you'd have it where like both sides pick their cards at the same time, and then the different cards have a paper, rock, scissors interaction with each other, right? You could absolutely do that if you wanted to. Don't fucking do that, but it would definitely be possible. That would change the game a lot though, and you'd have to like design it that way in mind, or you'd have to like completely change health values and all kinds of things. Like, there's so many things would have to change for that to work. You could though. I thank God they're not going to, because why? Because art beats all, Wait a minute, Fury. Medusa's quick, and Gorgon is Buster. So this is not adding up. I sense betrayal. So I legit feel like what they would do is they would do like Buster beats Art, Art beats Quick, and Quick beats Buster. Like, that's how I think they would probably do it. Like oh man, the quick ones they're too fast. It's too fast for the dumb Buster monkey brains, right? Like, that's what I think that's what their logic would be. Yeah, they do have 2 arts cards, but they have more of everything else, and NP is not art. Assuming you count the NP as a card. Oh, this is like actually kind of a boss? Excuse me. I have a feeling Angra's not going to be so good here. Chat, I don't know what's giving me the idea, but I don't know. I'm not sure Angra's going to be all that much use to us here. Oh man, guys, he drained his NP. It's so hard to keep track of what the fuck Chad is even talking about right now. Man, we have double buff block. If only I could remove those. I'm actually not going to remove them yet, though. I'll wait until next turn. There's no reason to do it. Just in case it does it again, so. I should have cast Quick Up early, though. I would have actually gotten my NP by now. Angra quick crits actually can get really strong. It's just not strong enough to justify everything else by any means. Alright, here we go, chat. You know, I really should have given Scatty's buff to Angra. We'll go put in third place. Gonna get that sick Angra damage. I like how we haven't ramped up either, so that's like the default quick up, which is smaller, so. Or we could just kill it. There is that. Well, I want to know exactly where my bond is on Coog. I know he's really close to 13, I want to see. Where's our boy? Wait. I was going to go look at Angra. That's the wrong. Okay, 82. That's still a bit, but we're getting there. So fucking Canis is ridiculous, by the way. Her 6 to 7, the amount of bond she needs from bond 6 to bond 7 is more than most servants need from like bond 9 to 10 or like any bond rank. Like it's one of those really bullshit ones. And then her 7 to 8 and 8 to 9 and all that are lower or way lower. Like her 6 to 7 is just massive for some fucking reason. Okay, he just needs a casual 326k. We'll just knock that out real fast, guys. We'll get that done in like 5 minutes. No problem. Where's Mori at? Mori needs 200k. Or at least he's at least bond 7. So if he ever did add a bond thing, he's in okay shape. And then we got Sanson. He's in bond 10 for a long time. It was one of the first things I got to bond 10, and boy was that not a practical thing. But generally bond 10's not anyway. Alright, she actually got bond 11. I actually used her for farming a lot. That's a lie. Canis gets the back burner a lot for me, so she's gotten a decent amount of bond, but like the two I make sure are generally on the team is Angra and Ku, and so the next one is Canis, but she gets cut a lot, so she hasn't gotten all that much bond yet. But it's not like her bond CE is not very good, and I feel like if they ever do add something that has to do with bond again, like they did with the Solomon event, I figure it's not going to be until the end of 2.0, so I've got a decent amount of time, so. And if she's like bond 9 or whatever, I'm not going to really care. It's like good enough. My first bond 10 was obviously Ku. I think it was Ku. And then it might have been Sanson. I can't quite remember. I know the first chunk was like Ku, Sanson, Billy, Jolter. I actually got Jolter pretty quick because I just wanted to have the maximum dragon boost with, you know, her attack up for dragons with the Buster thing. So I just put her in the back row a lot. So like, why not? And then Mordred didn't take too long. Like I got her fairly early on. It was definitely after a lot of the other ones. I mean, Jolter is still really good. It doesn't, being basic doesn't mean you're bad, because you know what Jolter does is she has attack up, she has buster up, and she has crit up. So if she has a buster crit, without any buffs from anyone else, she's getting basically every damage mod she can have. So she gets ludicrously large buster crits, and then as a bonus, she gets a nice survivability skill too. And then RNP has a really nice niche with buff block. Like, that's an incredibly good toolkit. Like, Ushi's got a basic as fuck kit, and yet Ushi's one of the best 3 stars in the game. Oh yeah, and Star Absorb, so it's really easy for her to crit. It's like she literally has a kit that's designed for critting, and then she makes it very easy for herself to crit, and she gets the maximum amount of, like, you know, bonus, you know, buff stacking that she can get. And then she's also an Avenger, so she's applicable in almost every situation ever. She's not the best unit in the game by any means, but Jolter has always been a fucking, like, amazingly good unit. They're probably gonna buff her eventually, though, just because power creep and because she's so popular. Mainly the popular thing. Yeah, a lot of the really basic kits end up being really good. Now they're saving some, because really, actually, most basic kits are good. It's kits that are just bad that are bad. Who knew? Like, Phantom's toolkit's not basic. It's just shit. It's just a lot of really bad effects. It's very not basic and it's very abnormal. It's like, oh, hey, look how abnormal this Phantom guy is, and that did not work out very well for him. So yeah, it's more about like what total value do you bring to the table and how applicable is it. That's what ends up mattering, not if it's fancy or not. I mean, Jolter doesn't really need anything. She's, if I wanted to, basically every challenge quest ever, I could make Jolter work pretty easily for. I just don't, because I generally don't do 5-star stuff that much. Like, people, I've seen this a lot where people act like Jolter just doesn't work. It's so easy to make Jolter setup still work. Oh my god, like, it's still so fucking easy. Yeah, she needs a model update. That she definitely needs. Like, if you have Jolter, and you don't have Merlin or something, you just summon your friend's Merlin, and like, that's still so effective, right? That's still so effective. It's like, yeah, it might not be the most effective. It might not be like, oh, you look at this noob using Jolter and Merlin, and look, it took him like, you know, 9 turns to beat the thing, where you could just 3-turn it if you did all this other stupid bull. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. It's irrelevant. Imagine if Merlin's invulnerability lasted 3 hits and unlimited turns. See, that's the nightmare. You make it like protection from arrows, but it's invulnerability, and it's for everybody. Like, that's broken. That would be so broken. Because then you could put him behind a taunt wall, and then by the time the enemy finally attacks you, you got invulnerability back again, right? And not just for yourself, for the whole team, right? Like, that's completely ridiculous. Actually, most of the community really isn't obsessed with 3-turning. It's the whales that are obsessed with it. And there is somewhat of a trickle-down effect because, you know, random people on Discord or Reddit or whatever try to emulate the people that are getting all the clout, if you will. But it's like, why this happens is because if you have everything and you've got like all these NP5s and you got all these broken craft essences, and, you know, you've got Exus, you got your own Merlin waiver, you've got Tam Scatty, you've got Joan of Arc, you've got, you know, you name it, you've got it. And then you got friends that have all those things. You got 2030, you got mini case scopes. Not just one, you have mini case scopes. You got all the nonsense. Generally, challenge quests are not hard, right? You might need to do it once or twice just to understand what the gimmicks are. Right, like you don't know what the gimmicks are, and so then you need to figure out what you're supposed to do. But then once you know what the gimmicks are, it's going to be so easy for you to protect the unit you need to protect, or to get enough value to do the damage you need to do and stuff, that beating the challenge quest doesn't mean anything, right? If the game is that easy, and you know all the whales can just beating the challenge quest is not enough. That's not going to get you any clout, right? It's like, and that's not, you're like, oh, this is dull, right? So what you do is you try to beat it then really quickly, because beating it's not the hard part anymore, right? Because you got such a strong, you know, options. And so what they try to do is you know, show off with doing it very quickly, generally, or something like that. Which in a way you can kind of see how that's a natural progression. However, it kind of trickles down into other people that like aren't whales and don't have all these options and whatnot, and they generally can't 3-turn it, and that shouldn't be a big deal because of course you don't have those options. What am I doing again? I guess it's just more filler bullet. These stages are just nothing burgers for so long. But ultimately, if someone enjoys playing the game that way, that's fine. It's not like it's a problem, but it's not a universal standard, and of course it shouldn't be. But the reason it shouldn't be is because the overwhelming majority of the player base is not going to have Poster Girl and K-Scope and 3 other Limit Broken K-Scopes and another Poster Girl and 2030 and not just Merlin, but MP5 Merlin, and not just you know, Ishtar, but MP5 Ishtar, right? Most people aren't going to have that stuff, right? So it's not like it's an even playing field to begin with. So for most players, it doesn't matter how many turns you do it in. It matters if you beat it or not. Because I think the majority of the player base is not sitting here swimming in such overpowered options that it's like, of course the challenge quest is easy. They're just worried about beating it in the first place. So like how useful is a unit to helping somebody just beat the challenge quest in the first place means more to me than, oh wow, this is the best unit to min-max 3-turning, right? Like it just doesn't matter. If somebody enjoys doing that stuff, more power to them. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not, I don't think that's a good standard for like the community as a whole to adopt it. Like, well, that's how you determine if a unit's actually useful or not, because it's just not applicable to most people. Oh yeah, I remember this one. You have to like, you kill the ads and she loses the defense buff, but it's like, the defense buff isn't even that big, so it doesn't matter that much. Angra bypassing defense, it's true, he does do that. Actually, this is a stage where if you had a level 100 Angra, 2k foe to that extra health, you know, craft essence for 3000 extra health, all the little bells and whistles, you have the bonus health, all that nonsense. You could potentially, you know, get an MP off that would really fuck up this ghost. The problem is, how are you going to get Angra's health? By the time you get Angra's health low enough, like you're waiting for the boss to NP or something, you could have probably just killed it by then, right? Or just brought someone with armor ignore and just smacked them that way. Like, so there's no... It's just, you know, doing it to do it, right? It's not actually that useful, really. Although it would be fun to do that still. I'm actually in that situation though. I don't have as many like OP options as a lot of whales do, but I definitely could make every challenge quest ever quite trivial if I wanted to. Because I've been playing for a long time and I have gotten a lot of strong stuff that I've built up. You know, I've got a Limit Broken K-Scope, only one, but I've got a Limit Broken K-Scope, I've got Black Grail, I've got 2030, it's not Limit Broken, but it's still 2030. I've got a Poster Girl, I have loads of 5 stars, most of them are MP1 or MP2, but still, if I can trivialize challenge quests quite easily if I wish to. I just don't want to. I don't enjoy trivializing things. It's not fun for me. Now, I could not trivialize all the challenge quests necessarily as much as like a Leviathan could, because there really is a difference between like, oh hey, yeah, I've got a nice roster of 5 stars versus I have like, you know, all these 5 stars and they're MP5, right? Like I can't compare with something like that by any means. But I still could make the challenge quests quite boring if I wanted to. Because especially if you're trying to do 3-turn bullshit, like you really want that DPS to be a 5-star that's MP5, right? That's gonna just objectively make it easier for you. The only 5-star I have in MP5 is Mordred, right? That's the only one, at least on this account. There's honestly no point in me trying to get rid of all the defense buffs. It doesn't actually matter. Guys, we gotta save Angra. This is really important. Yeah, the anniversary is right around the corner, so... But I know, Beastie's kind of up to like how much you like. I know you use Kama a lot and all that, so it's like if you really like her, it's not, because I mean the anniversary could potentially add something you don't care about. So, although it could add something you really care about too. So, that's the plight of JP is no clairvoyance, by the way. You know what I think would be kind of a fun thing to do for Medea Lily? This doesn't make any thematic sense. Well, it kind of does. I'm sure she has knowledge of magic that could do some of this stuff. But if you actually gave her, like, offensive buffs for the team, right? Because basically, she's compared a lot to the other supports that are very defensive-oriented, obviously. And where Medea Lily excels is she has just unbelievable anti-debuff and then massive healing, but no hard survival at all. None. Absolutely none. No evade, no invulnerability, no guts, not even a large defense up, nothing like that. You know, she's pure healing, generally more than you would ever need, and then pure anti-debuff, right? That's like, and that's fine. It's fine to her to be focused in that, but it's not enough. That doesn't justify the lacking stuff in her kit often enough, unless the fight is just super debuff based. And it'd be a lot of other buffs you could do that you could give her would put her in such direct competition. It'd make her like too similar to, you know, copy paste compared to other supports. Like you got Asclepius and Irisveal and those kinds of things. I think a better way to have her compete with those kinds of servants is give her like a attack up for the team, stuff like that. So like, yeah, she's not going to give you any hard survival, so when an NP comes around, somebody's probably going to die, but she'll make sure you don't die until then. Like, normal cards aren't going to get you, debuffs aren't going to get you, and then while you're doing that, you can actually get some damage in. It would be kind of weird thematically, but gameplay-wise, I actually think that would be a nice niche for her. Because I think Asclepius and Irisveal do have a decent amount of differences to each other. I think Asclepius still comes out on top, but they actually have some pretty noticeable differences from each other. With Medea Lily, it's not like she does have things that are unique to her, absolutely. It's just, I think another thing you could give her that would really make a nice distinction is attack up, or, you know, NP up, or whatever you wanted to do. I think even more heal would be pointless, because she's already at that point where it's easy to overheal. So, although that wouldn't hurt her, it would barely help her. Maid Ulta's whole shtick is basically she's like a DPS / pseudo support. That's like the whole thing. Generally, she's not good enough to warrant that. You know, normally the pure supports offer so much that you don't need a hybrid necessarily, but it's certainly usable though. It's not like it can't work, it can. Ivan's really good. And then we have Sanson. I guess the good news is, guys, because they just buffed Kiara, there's no way she's one of the units getting buffed for the anniversary. So that frees up a slot for somebody else, so that's kind of nice, I suppose. You really just didn't need a third buff, though. Like, yeah, Kiara's not the best 5-star in the game, but before this, you know, buff. But she was, you know, quite good, and she worked really well in the niches she was designed for, so... You know, there are just so many other units. I'm like, even thematically in this event that I think would have needed it more. Like, you know, even Matahari I think needed it more, even though I think Matahari is a good 1-star. I mean, the anniversary has historically had a lot of dumb buffs in it. But they normally have a few. They normally have 2 or 3. They're like, okay, that was good, and then the rest of them are like, this didn't really need a buff. At least not more than a bunch of other things. And it's because a lot of times the things that need buffs are things that aren't popular. There's just no way around it. My whole shtick is, and I've said this a million times, it's like it's foolish to focus so much on what's popular, because if you just there's such a small number of units that desperately need a buff. Just get them over with. Just buff them. You could literally do it tomorrow if you wanted to, right? It doesn't take any work. It's almost entirely on paper stuff you have to do. And you just type it in. You know, it's not like you have to, you know, do a fancy interlude to go along with it. You just do a generic strengthening quest. And like, if you just got all the generic ones out of the way, that like you know, your Hides, your Benkeis, your Phantoms, Geronimo, that kind of stuff. It would not take very long to get all that out of the way, and then you could just focus more on the stuff that's like thematic or fancy or whatever. Like, and I get it, when they want to do the thematic buffs based on the event, that's fine, whatever. Although I still don't think you should buff units that are completely don't need a buff at all. But like, that's not a big deal. But like, you also could just do buffs just to buff. You don't even have to have an event going on, right? You could just have like in a dead week, oh hey, by the way, we decided to buff Geronimo and Phantom, and our reasoning is because, you know, they're bad, right? There's no explanation needed for like, hey guys, we just buffed Phantom. No one's gonna be like, but there's no anniversary event going on. There's no Phantom of the Opera event going on. Why would you buff him? I don't understand. My worldview is being shattered. Like, no one's gonna say that. Everyone's like, oh yeah, of course you buff Phantom. He's awful, right? Like, duh, right? It's like that's what most games do, right? Like, most games, let's say they release like in a PvP game or something, like they release a new character and they're trash. You know, normally they buff them pretty quickly because they're trash, right? Like this is not a bizarre thing to be doing. Meanwhile, we've been stuck with Benkei for 5 years and he's never been buffed. No, that is absolutely not the only way to buff Geronimo. Not only that, that would actually be an awful buff for Geronimo that would result in no one using him. A very obvious way to buff Geronimo is just give him standard effects that are good. I don't know why everyone can just not think outside of the box. They're like, oh, Geronimo's third skill's quick up, therefore the only way we could possibly buff this thing is if we made it targeted or if we made it AoE. We couldn't possibly do a buff like almost every other buff in the entire game, like adding another effect to it, like, oh wow, maybe he gives himself an evade, or maybe he gives himself an attack up, or maybe he generates a bunch of stars, or maybe he gives himself a big crit buff. Like, we couldn't do that. No one's ever been buffed like that. And like his Buster Up, clearly it has to just be a targeted Buster Up or an AoE Buster Up. We couldn't possibly give that another effect either. Like, I don't know, maybe an MP game buff or a battery skill or guts. No. It's like, I don't understand. Literally look at almost every buff they've ever done, and it's almost always, hey, we either just like skyrocketed the numbers on something or we added a new effect to it. That's so common. Look at what they did today. Thickcaster got a new effect on her first skill. They weren't like, oh, we gotta like just enhance the things that are already there. No, they just like, yeah, we'll just add a battery to it. That's generally their go-to shtick. Like, look at all the saber buffs. It was like, I don't know how we're gonna make all these different sabers. I've got Artoria, Arthur, Mordred, Attila, Saber Alter. I just give all of them. Just give all of them a battery and stars and a crit up. There's just all of them. Just fuck it, right? Like, that's overwhelmingly what they do because they're lazy. But I see that every time we talk about Geronimo. There's always people that are like, oh yeah, you gotta make his skills targeted or AoE. Like, that is so dumb. Why would that would not be helpful at all, right? Like, when would you like look at the times when you're doing budget teams and stuff, and when you're like wanting to bring a support and stuff, right? When have you ever seen a 1 to 3 star team, or even a 1 to 5 star team that's throwing in some budget supports, where you're like, yeah, I need an Art Buster quick support. Wait, who makes a team like that, right? It's like, no, I'm supporting. So you're doing 1 to 5 stars, right? And you're one of your few rare units maybe is Achilles. You're gonna want like quick support specifically, right? Or just like generic attack up or generic battery. You're not gonna be like, yeah, let's get Geronimo because he's got that AoE quick now. Like, you're gonna use Hans or you're gonna use Caesar or something like that. Like, Jesus Christ. There's no world where if you make Geronimo's buffs AoE or targeted that he's going to be able to compete. Like, wow, guys, we made Geronimo's art up targeted, so clearly now he's better than Mozart, right? Right? Like, he's totally going to be a legit pick over Mozart. Like, no, of course not, right? It would barely help him. Like, sure, it'd be better than nothing, but it would have almost no effect on when you would bring Geronimo. You're not going to suddenly bring Geronimo because he can give you a minor, up type of every card thing. Like when you could just bring a really big, card effectiveness up from a different unit. Like, it's so much better. Like, the only way you would use Geronimo is if you specifically needed his damage up for like a teammate, right? And then you also specifically needed an AoE caster that also healed the team and gave you debuff resistance, right? You need that exact thing for it to be like, oh yeah, Geronimo makes sense here, right? And that is really specific. And yeah, it might happen every once in a while, but not enough to like make Geronimo good. Oh yeah, we just need to bring a bonus CE. Man, you fight a lot of assassins and berserkers here. I'm not gonna say what phone I use because that's one of the account recovery options, so it's not really smart to say. I'll say though it is a Samsung device, like that's fine. And I like Samsung devices. By the way, not sponsored, but I like Samsung devices because they're very easy to stream with. Like they've got Samsung Flow and they've got Samsung Secure Folder, and it's just very easy to have like 2 accounts on the same device and to stream those accounts and stuff like that. Like mirror them on your computer so you can stream it. Like Samsung devices are just really good like that. And it's also really easy to play JP on Android in general, not necessarily Samsung, but on Android in general, it's easy to play JP server. But really, I'm not sponsored. It's just the truth that it is very easy to have multiple FGO accounts on the same device and to stream them on Samsung devices. So, Jerry, I mean, I can give you a towel. That's like the best I can do here. Wait, this is the only wave? Killing me, game. I should just be casting this on turn 1. Just, fuck it, we're giving it to Ongra, boys. We haven't ramped up, but we're doing it anyway. And we have no crits. But oh wait, that's right, we have this thing. That's right. Excuse me, I should be like using this all the time. And then we'll literally just drain it later. But it's like, you might as well get it maxed so you have the option to have it maxed. And then if you want to drain it, you can drain it. It just doesn't matter. Look at all that damage. I should have done this too. I messed up. The misplays. Fuck! Ku killed it. I was hoping we get that 40% crit there with the Buster card bonus. Oh, guys, there's the meta. Guys, how could we have possibly overlooked this? See, you clearly use Space Ishtar and Geronimo, right? And then you first do his Buster buff for Ishtar, right? And then she does the Buster variant of her NP. Then you use a command spell and you get her another NP. And then you switch to the art one, right? Which you actually can't do at this point, but like just pretend you can. And then you do his art buff, right? See there's the meta, obviously. Instead of like just picking the quick one and just looping with like a normal support, or the art one just looping with the normal support, you know. Because the same thing with Ishtar, it's like generally, when do you ever actually switch her card type? You normally just pick one, right? It's like, oh, I'm using Tam, so I'm going to use the art one, right? Or I'm using Scatty, so I'm using the quick one, you know, or I just need like this Buster chain here. Like, I guess you might change it every once in a while based on like what cards are in your hand. Or like, oh, hey, I've got my 2 art cards. So I'll do the art one, and I'll do art after and get an art chain or something, or I'll get a quick chain, or I'll get a Buster chain. Like you might do that, but generally the supports you're bringing for her are going to be aimed at one type. You know, you're just going to bring like Merlin, or you're just going to bring Tam, or you're just going to bring Waver or whatever. Well, actually, no, it's not. I mean, a lot of times you might bring Merlin and Waver, but that doesn't really matter. You'll do double Merlin and Waver, you know, that kind of thing. But that's more of a Waver thing, not a Space Ishtar thing. And there, you know, no doubt, if you made Geronimo's skills targeted or you made Geronimo's skills AoE, he would be slightly better. It's not like it would make him worse, but it would be such a minor increase that it would have basically no effect on when he's actually meta to use or not. Now, it'd be easier to meme with them, right? You could use him as, because right now you can't use him as a damage support in any way, because he only buffs himself. Where just for the fun of it, you could use him as a art support, or as a quick support, or as a Buster support, just cause. I don't think that's going to suddenly make him a better Buster support than Qin Gong and Shakespeare, or a better art support than Mozart, or, you know, or a better quick than Alexander, or just Hans, even though Hans isn't quick specific, but you know, it is what it is. But you could do it for funsies. But I'd much rather than, you know, just make him better in general. And like I always say, like what you could do is you can get pretty crazy with buffs, right? Look what they did with Hohenheim. They added a 50% NP gain for 3 turns, right? You can get pretty wild if you want to, and they've done plenty of crazy buffs. So with Geronimo, you can make it so his buffs are AoE, but then also do something else, right? Let's say you buff his 3rd skill. So you make it so it's a quick up for the whole team. First of all, you can make it a bigger quick up if you wanted to. You can make it last more turns if you wanted to. But if you wanted to just make it the 1 turn, you can make it the 1 turn and just the quick up for the team. But then also it gives Geronimo an evade, right? So now it's like flexible. Now you can just use it like you can use him as a more generic AoE caster like Babbage or Casterku or something. And he's also got that survivability, so he's not gonna just fall over dead. So that's nice. You know, and for his Buster run, you can make the Buster up AoE if you wanted to, and then you could also add an MP battery skill to it or something like that. So that way he's way better as what he's supposed to do in the first place, which is be an AoE caster. And as a bonus, hey look, he can also do some team support. Like that makes infinitely more sense to me. Guys, we need Atalante to make more stars. The cat just does not make enough stars. That 99 pennies. Not even making 200 stars. Can you believe it? If she cared, she would hack the game so she'd get rid of the 99 star cap and then she would make more 99. But clearly she does not care because she's a lazy cat, right? And she's only going to make the 99. I mean, come on now. Just hack the game, forehead. Thank you for the dual-wielded pennies, Beastly. NP's critting would be such a mistake. Like, that would be such a mistake. Now, I'll say this. You could make a character where their shtick is their NP can crit. But you cannot make it a generic across-the-board thing. Because you could balance a unit around that, right? You could balance a unit around that. You could not balance every unit around that at all. You know, I wouldn't mind that, Fury. I wouldn't mind that if you went over 50, they carried over into the next turn. That would be kind of... Now, I'll say this. On the high end, that would be broken. When you're doing double scatty stuff, or even double, like, Merlin with 20, 30 that are both limit broken, there's definitely times that's going to get busted. But who cares? Because the high end is already so busted. You know, I really think it's more important to make sure the normal gameplay is funner and enjoyable and has good variety and all that. Because at this point, the high end is so busted. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna? It's not fixable anyway. So I don't really care if they're able to just endlessly crit, because they try hard enough can endlessly crit. So I would not mind if you went over 50. If you could at least say maybe you could bank like half of them. Maybe banking all of them would be too much or something. But I wouldn't mind that. It'd be nice if the stars over 50 did something. It's just hard. It's not like the players are too weak right now. Let's be real. It's not like the players are too weak right now. Some units are way too weak, and like some budget options are lacking. Like there's certain styles of units, like certain niches that need to be filled. So like budget teams have like good options against, you know, all the different boss types that are lacking. There's certain like styles of boss fight that can pop up and have popped up that like more budgety teams, more free-to-play friendly teams and stuff don't have good answers for. And so, but the answer to that is generally just add new units that fill that role. You know, like a single target caster that's actually aimed at being a damage dealer, like a caster equivalent to Bedivere or something. You know, that would be really nice. That's, you know, actually in the FP summon, that would be excellent. But they just refuse to do that. Of course, they keep adding 5-star servants like that because they want that money, but you can't get a fucking 3-star and FP Gosher that could do that. Our best single target caster is an AoE caster, which is like Chin Gong or Caster Ku. Yeah, Medea, please. Don't make me explain that one again. Literally AoE caster damage, but doesn't get the benefit of being AoE. That's Medea's life. The best single target caster is Lu Bu. I mean, that's kind of true, to be honest. But unfortunately, he has all the drawbacks of a berserker, so you know he kind of dies quickly. But for real, he does generally when you're having like you're trying to do a budgety thing, and you're having assassin problems, and you're trying to be really budget friendly, or you just are really limited on your options. Generally, Lu Bu is kind of the way to go. The problem with Qin Gong as a damage dealer is it's not really friendly to a free-to-play team. It works. Qin Gong as a DPS absolutely works, but the kind of team that needs to surround him is generally not the kind of team you're going to have available to you as a new player or a free-to-play person or whatever. I really do need to be spamming the Mystic Code, but a lot of times you don't need it, so it's like whatever. Not that I'm going to do the final boss with the full gauge because it's bullshit. And I would have to use all my OP shit, which I don't want to do, so. If you changed Jekyll and Hyde where it wasn't an option, but you had to start as Hyde, it would actually be a worse unit. Getting the value out of his assassin self against Riders is pretty much the most value you're ever going to get out of him, and then getting a full heal when you switch to the Berserker. Honestly, the full power version of the boss is definitely beatable. It's just you're not doing it with like a budget team by any means. Well, the thing is, the whole term budget team is kind of bullshit, by the way, because like I'm not kidding. I could use, from my account, I could use like my level 100 coup, you know, summon a friend's scatty, use my own, and then, you know, put my waiver in the back, have poster. I can go as extreme like that and call it a budget team, because I didn't spend a penny on any of those things. Right? But it doesn't mean that somebody else is going to have those things. So it's like the budget means not spending money, ultimately. And there's nothing, you don't need to spend money to go to a lot of 5 stars. A lot of people haven't spent a penny on this game, and they have loads of 5 stars. And they have loads of powerful craft essences and stuff. Yeah, they don't have all the 5 stars in NT5, and then they don't have all the limited craft essences like, you know, Poster Girl and stuff, but they have some of them. But they're not necessarily limit broken and those kinds of things. So it's not like there's obviously a difference between spending money and not spending money, but you can still have lots of rare things and be budget. So it's like, almost the saying budget team basically has no meaning, because it doesn't actually... It doesn't mean anything, right? Now, most people, what they imply by it is like a setup that's like easy to mimic regardless of what your RNG has been. I think that's what most people mean by it, but that's not really what budget actually means, and that's not what everybody means when they say budget team, so it's all kind of meaningless nowadays. I'm not gonna lie, chat, when I like name my videos and I put in the YouTube tags and stuff, I mostly am just doing it for the YouTube algorithm, right? Like that's really the only reason. What the videos I make are just what I want to make. That's just what it is. I just like not trivializing boss fights. That's all there is to it. And then I like doing thematic stuff, and I like using my favorites, right? That's what I like doing. And then everything else is just whatever. Like that's ultimately what I'm doing with my videos. Yeah, I didn't really know what else to name it, so I was like, whatever. Name it that. I don't know why I bothered doing all that on this turn, because it's not really a turn that it makes all that much sense, but I figure I'll do it now so I don't forget. I don't think it really matters, though. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if you need to max gauge it to unlock the final stuff, and then you drain it, or if you can just drain it from whatever you built it up to. Like I don't remember. It's been too long. I just remember when you get to the end, I feel like you were supposed to have maxed it to unlock the ending stuff, and then you have the ability to lower your gauge. So I think you have to max it, but I may be wrong, and maybe you don't have to max it, and it doesn't really matter. I just can't remember. If there's someone in chat remembers, because it was like a year ago, right? Has it been more than a year? I don't know. I wish I got Tesla spooks. See, I don't actually okay, I'll say this. When you summon a 5-star, it's a rare thing, and it feels bad when that rare thing is taken up by something you don't care about. So if I summon Mev or something, I'm definitely not happy, and my initial reaction is going to be, God damn it, because that could have been something I really liked, right? So obviously there is a degree of fuck, but it is nice to get rare prisms. However, now that I think about it, on my main account, I don't really need rare prisms anymore, because I've been playing the game for a long time, I've burned a variety of things, and they give out rare prisms, right? Now, especially if you've been playing the game for a while, if you're new, for example, the Summer 3 rerun, if you were a newer player, you didn't get a bunch of rare prisms out of that. But if you have been playing for a while, and you played the original Summer 3, the run, instead of giving you a bunch of jerker copies, it came along with a rare prism, right? So you end up getting a bunch of rare prisms and stuff, and now that happens multiple times throughout a year, so you actually end up getting a bunch of free rare prisms, and sometimes you give out rare prisms for like stage rewards here and there. And so between that and then the stuff that I burn, my main account has actually gotten plenty of rare prisms, and so if I get a 5-star I don't really want anymore, it doesn't mean a lot to me anymore. It's not like I'm like, oh man, I get rare prisms, yeah, because I've already got Anniversary Blonde, I've already got, you know, the Arjuna CE and the Melty Sweetheart and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, there's still things I can get with rare prisms, sure, but I would have much preferred to have gotten like a 5-star I actually like. Alright, what are we doing here? I hate this event, dude. It is so boring. Because it's like, you're not actually exploring a maze. You're just doing linear stuff anyway. Like, ultimately, you just have to do all of this stuff. It doesn't matter what order you do it in. There's just so much busy work. When it could be Quetz or Achilles and it was Mev, yeah, it feels bad. I mean, some people like Mev, good for them, but, yeah, I'm not a fan. Mostly what I do now is, because I have enough rare prisms to get anything I need, if it pops up and I need it, if I get a 5-star, I'll probably just hold on to them, even if I don't like them at all, just in case to get a strengthening quest or an interlude that has really awesome gameplay, and so I can just keep them for that. But if I run out of rare prisms, or I have the need of, like, you know, spinning a bunch of rare prisms at once or whatever, then I'll burn them. Like, I'd much rather burn them than just on an if they might get a good interlude or something. You know, I just realized the reason why Twitch recently made it so thought can't be said by default is, I bet you it's because all the titty streamers were mad that people would come into their streams and call them thoughts. That's like the whole reason why it has to be approved. Because, you know, Twitch loves its Twitch. I will say this, there's definitely, like I was saying thought now, and we've obviously already approved it. Like, it doesn't work that way. Anyway, if people act like Twitch has like this huge problem with those kinds of streams, when it actually makes up such an unbelievably small percentage of Twitch, so it's like, who cares, right? It's like, it's so easy to avoid if you don't care for that stuff. And it's not my place to tell people what kind of content they're supposed to enjoy, right? So ultimately, I don't care. I just care about like some of the double standards and that kind of thing. That kind of stuff's not good. I don't care about those streams existing. But anyway, back on the point, it is kind of funny because thought kind of exists, that it's slang that came into being to basically not say ho, right? Like that's like the whole point of it. It was slang to say something without saying something. And then now it basically is just saying that thing now, right? It's just that's how language is, though. You know, we make new words that mean the exact same thing, and then all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of funny how that is. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what you say; it matters what you mean and like what the context is, right? Because someone could say thought in a way that's joking or friendly, but then you could say it in a way that's insulting or whatever. And like, if you should or should not be insulted by it or whatever, I guess is well based on yourself, but also just like the context. I guess It's like if your friend is like jokingly saying, "Oh fuck you," that's not the same as some stranger being like, "Hey, fuck you, how dare you open that door," or whatever. You know, it's like it's not the same thing. I'm so lazy, and I'm so bored of these stages, I don't want to cast my Mystico 3 times. Yeah, I just can't be bothered. Chat, are they going to add a pity system on the anniversary? Yes or no? I'm going to say no. I'm just going to say no. Feels bad, but I'm going to say no. I hope they do though. Literally no one has any faith in DW doing it. Literally no one. No one has said yes. There actually is money in it though. There's a reason why most games have it. Is because there's a lot of advantages to having a proper pity system. First of all, it's better for player retention, right? It keeps people from quitting your game and stuff. So there's a longevity aspect to it. And also, let's say somebody has saved up free SQ, but not enough to hit the pity system. But they've saved up a chunk of free SQ, and they don't get the thing that they wanted. They don't get the rated up 5-star. But they're like, but I'm only this many summons away from the pity system. That they're way more inclined now to spend the money that's set, and they know there's a set amount of money they can spend now to hit that safety net. So where otherwise like, fuck, I didn't get the thing and that's that. Now they're like, well, yeah, I could spend, you know, 60, 70 bucks or whatever it's going to be to hit the safety net, right? So then they're way more likely to do it. There's a lot of reasons why safety nets are actually good. You know, it keeps your whales from getting crazy pissed off. It actually makes people that won't spend money actually spend some money sometimes. Because generally the safety net's going to be expensive enough that free-to-plays aren't going to suddenly start going from 0 to the safety net. But let's say they did half of the safety net on their own with their free resource, they might be willing to pay the other half, right? Not always, but they might. And through volume, a lot of times this actually results in more profit. Seriously, all these other games don't have safety nets just to be nice, right? It's because it does give them better PR, sure, but it also is because their bottom line ends up getting better with them. That's why it's so standard now. FGO is just a goddamn dinosaur and can't figure out how fucking marketing works. I gotta be clear about this. FGO may make a lot of money, but it's not because DW and Aniplex are marketing geniuses. It's absolutely not. It's because they're getting carried by their IP like a motherfucker, right? Like their business savviness is kind of pathetic. Like it's actually awful. Like the way that they go about like the pacing of content and their price ratios and the lack of a safety net and like all these things, they're actually terrible at. They're actually really bad. FGO would have been a complete financial failure if it was not for the IP of Type Moon, and that is obvious by the way it was launched and everything and how they have changed things over time and stuff. It is, they are not very business savvy, which is sad because they've been successful for, you know, basically luck. Yeah, the music knows. This was day 1 FGO, by the way. Am I the only one that feels like, in many ways, FGO is slowly sliding back into its day 1 self? Because yeah, sure, they haven't gone back to like 40 SQ 10 pulls, and they haven't gone back to 10 minutes for 1 AP, and they haven't gone back to having no daily login rewards and weekly quests and stuff, but they've done things like adding way more story locked and limited 3 stars. The invented limited 3 stars and story locked CEs and you know, rarely putting 3 stars in FP summon now, and then diluting the gacha so there's way more 5-star and 4-star and 3-star CEs that are trash, so you're less likely to get the good ones, right? And like, there's so many things they've done that are bad. Yeah, AP used to be 10 minutes for 1 AP, yeah. And there used to be no way to get SQ outside of the main story and then buying it. That was the only way to get SQ. Shitty game day one, by the way. But I just feel like they're getting worse at a lot of things, even though they've done things to make a lot of like the quality of life stuff better. They've also like added a lot of things that interact with those systems in such negative ways that in a lot of ways it's getting worse. It's not necessarily as bad as it was, but and then also they're just doing such a bad job of keeping up with the times that like it just feels like FGO is like regressing in many ways. By the way, there's no reason to be bringing the default Mystic Code because you don't get the default Mystic Code effect. And then you're not leveling, you still get the XP for whatever Mystic Code you have equipped, so you might as, even if you don't care about the Mystic Code, you might as well bring something that gets XP. Like, as a developer, you have to have a balance of keeping players happy and making the game enjoyable versus doing things that are profitable, right? And I don't think DW has a very good ratio of that. And it's obvious when you look at how little they buff, or not, I'm sorry, don't buff, but how little they give animation updates. Excuse me, I didn't get enough sleep last night. How little they give animation updates to the lower rarity stuff. And when they do animation updates, they're like Hector's, where they put in very little effort and there's very little animation going on. It's a lot of like stick figure work, you know, like that's, you know, really unfortunate. But yeah, it takes no meaningful dev time to buff Benkei. It's literally numbers. Yeah, if you want to give him an animation update, that takes some degree of work. But buffing, just, you know, adding effects and stuff like that, that's not work at all. That doesn't take any effort. They just don't. Well, NA's profits are irrelevant, really, because the NA profit margin is like pathetic in comparison to JP and China's, so they don't care. Like, sure, if it makes more money, great, but they don't care. It's so, all of their decisions, like, even if they completely cater to the game to NA, like 3,000%, and the increase in profits they would see from that would be so minor compared to things that they could do that would fluctuate their profits in China or Japan, so they don't give a fuck. But I've said before, I really should have buffed Ku, so before Scatty died, we would have the buff still. I guess it does. I like how I didn't cast protection from arrows, because I'm not like paying attention to what I'm doing. But yeah, unfortunately, when it comes to like their business decisions and that kind of thing, NA is an afterthought. It's like, hey, we make money from it, great, but they don't care. But, I don't know, hopefully someday they'll get their shit sorted. Because it's not like I want the game to be bad, I want the game to be good. And it is good in many respects, but it still has a lot of huge problems. It's just, a lot of the huge problems are actually minor problems, they just have a huge effect on the game. They're things that are so easy to fix. It's not hard to give animation updates, it really isn't. It does take time, you know, animation work is a difficult process. But, you know, if you look at, like, the ratio of money they make to like what you could spend on artists and that kind of thing, it would not be a big deal for them to actually update the majority of the shitty animations in this game. They just can't be bothered, and so they don't hire more artists to do it, and they go at snail's pace, and it's very low priority. And so it takes a long time. You know, they can add a safety net, that's almost no work on their part. They could buff Benkei and Phantom and Jekyll and Hyde and Geronimo and those servants very easily. You don't have to do an event, you don't have to give them animation updates right away. You know, it's like, you can just buff their numbers and stuff and add an effect on here. That's like no work. All those things, and you could add story replay, because, you know, we don't know the specifics of, you know, all the coding in this game, so we don't know if adding a story replay would be very difficult for them or not. We do know for a fact that the game has spaghetti code, but we have no idea if that spaghetti code would actually make it difficult for them to do story replay or not. But anyway, even if doing story replay would be very difficult for them, it's still worth doing. And again, they have so much money, it's obviously something they could afford to do, and ultimately it would make the game better. These things, yeah, in the short term, you might have to hire more engineers, you might have to hire more artists and stuff, but in the long run, it makes your game look better, play better, and all those things. You know, it's not good for your game for new players to get in and have all these, like, you know, 1 to 3 star servants to start off with look like trash. That's not good. That's like, oh wow, the units in this game look bad. That doesn't make someone want to play it. You want them like, oh hey, these units look awesome. Oh, I really like this Hector guy. I like all the the Trojan War stuff. So and this Hector guy looks really awesome. So you know, I'm gonna use that, right? Like that's good. You want that. That's better for your player base, and that's more potential customers. Like hello, like this is really basic stuff. Like I'm not spewing like some revolutionary, you know, business here. Like this is some really bare bones stuff. Always like when you watch like, I don't know, like Gordon Ramsay's or someone, you know, go into one of these like restaurants that has just appalling business model, like just unbelievably bad business model, and then the owner will like argue, and it's not like the stuff that the guy's recommending is like some revolutionary risky business practice. It's like really basic 101 shit that you're obviously supposed to do, right? This is not crazy. It's not unique to Asia though. It's true there's a lot of Asian games, like Van Dictus is in the same boat, where all their like old story content is, you know, has not kept up with the power creep, and it's like bloated, and there's all these problems and stuff, and they don't really address it at all. Their way of addressing it is allowing you to breeze through it very quickly instead of making it funner and more engaging and more interesting and stuff, which is a huge mistake, but it is what they do. But that's not unique to Asian companies. That you see that in a lot of video games. It's very common for games to not keep their game up to snuff for like the new player experience, and to not you know, not add in systems and stuff that would actually make the game a lot better. That's very common. I much prefer the Gordon Ramsay stuff that like the shows he makes for like the European market, because it's really obvious there's a lot less like editing to like add drama. Like a lot of the American stuff, and this is almost like a meme, like almost everyone says this about it, but all the American produced stuff, you can tell they tell the people on both sides of it to play it up a bit. Like they may legitimately have like disagreement or something, but then the production staff will basically tell them to play it up and that kind of stuff, and they add like, you know, this over-the-top music, and they do the editing and stuff to make it seem like a bigger deal than it is and stuff like that. Where generally the European produced shows, it's a lot more just people having an actual conversation and actually, you know, doing practical things and things like that. Like, and it's a lot, honestly I like that a lot better, like way better. Like it's really obvious. It's kind of funny how obvious the difference is if you look at the European produced Gordon Ramsay stuff versus the American stuff, and the people that control the difference is obviously the producers and those kinds of things. And it's really clear the difference in direction and stuff. Like one's way more natural and just, you know, life, and the other one is like this over dramatized like reality TV bullshit. I don't know, some people maybe, you know, enjoy the dramatization, but it's, you know, it's so obviously dramatized that it makes it very fake. So now again, sometimes there's still, you know, real elements to it. It's not like the whole thing is staged or anything, and actually generally it's pretty proven that it's not staged, because you know, the restaurants and stuff are real locations that actual people go to, and a lot of times those people will say, oh yeah, this location really was like this, and sometimes say, oh yeah, they really did take the advice and it really is better now, or they didn't take the advice and it's not better now. But clearly the way things are playing out and like the way they're interacting, you know, they're playing it up for the camera and stuff. I think a lot of times they'll have the conversation almost off camera, and it's like, hey, okay guys, have that conversation again, but yell, right? Like it's shit like that, right? Well, it's not like it's entirely fake anger. I'm sure a lot of times he is frustrated by like the way the management is being done, or the environment and that kind of stuff. But they're definitely, because like, he still gets frustrated and mad on the European side of things, absolutely. But you know, it's way more, like I said, dramatized in the American stuff, and that's honestly just how a lot of American TV is, where it's, you know, they'll take something and over dramatize it. Man, we're still on the first floor, and the first floor is the shortest one, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure the last floor is just so long, dude. I don't entirely remember. Maybe all the floors are roughly the same size, but I'm pretty sure the floors get bigger as you go. I like how we're just getting Ongren Ku Bond. I mean, this event works like every other event. You just do the stages and get event currency. Like, it's like every other event. All of this stuff is superficial and it doesn't matter. It's not like, oh guys, if you go left here, that's a big mistake. You really need to go right here. Like, no, it does not fucking matter. You just, in a completely linear fashion, just click stages and go through it and beat all the stages and get the event currency. It's like, it's the same as every other event ever. I actually want George to die, so I'm not gonna stun and all that yet. Yeah, like the only event I can really think of, I can think of 2 events off the top of my head that there's actually something going on outside of just the same shit you always do. And that's Setsubun, obviously Setsubun in the Amazon event, and then kind of the Monopoly event. Even though it's still completely standard gameplay, you don't have the big brain anything, you're still just doing the same shit you always do. But it does legitimately behoove you to be like, oh, I should save like my guaranteed 3-roll dice to make sure I skip over the go to jail space, right? And like buy the 1-roll dice so I can make sure I hit this space that I haven't hit yet, right? But it's still like that's so basic. I mean, does anyone have to explain that to you? Thank you, Finn, for the gifted sub directs. I appreciate that. Jesus, 131 subs, dude. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Monopoly event. Like, it just, that stuff is so bare bones. It doesn't change it. You're still just going through the stages, in a really linear fashion and building up your mats, and you buy the stuff from the shop. Nothing's really changing all that much. And you meet some arbitrary checkpoint to unlock the next main story stage. That's how like every event is, man. Like, it's not really different at all. So, like, out of the few events I can think of, I was like, oh hey, this is a bit different. The maze event is not one of them. It's not at all. It's, like I said, it's super superficial. Like, all I care about is Ku's NP gain, but I didn't give him starting NP, and then Angra's taking all the cards, so. And that would mean the next hand is like guaranteed to be a bunch of Ku cards, but then Angra's gonna die, and then we're gonna get access to our whole deck anyway, so it's irrelevant. Yeah, I really do like Setsubun because it really is different. It is a fundamental different style of event that changes the game a lot. And that's good. Now, there were problems with it. I don't think it was executed perfectly at all. I think there's some pretty glaring problems with it, honestly, but there's still a lot of good things about it. Like, some of the problems, is like, the pacing, I think, is kind of whack. I think if you're going to have 200 floors, there needs to be way better quality. So I think it would have been way better to have like 150 floors or 100 floors, 120 floors. Like, have the 100 floors, and each floor is a lot more meaningful. And then maybe have like your bonus 20 floors, like your extra after story thing. We like to do that kind of thing. And make those 20 floors really crazy. Like 120 floors would be awesome, because then those first 100 floors you can make way more meaningful, a bit longer or harder or whatever. You can pace it better. And then you do like these 20 floors as like an after story that's super fucking hard. These 20 floors are nuts, right? And that's but you get the grail at the 100th floor and that kind of thing. That would have been a lot better. Also, I didn't like the event CE. That style of event I don't think lends itself very well to having an event CE that makes one unit way stronger, because that event incentivizes you to solo so much anyway. Like, who cares, right? Just scale it for a normal solo or whatever anyway, and then that way you have more freedom in craft essences. So, like, because I honestly, as I played this game for a long time, I have found that I loathe events that have damage CEs, because they're not interesting. They just limit you in every way. It's like, I don't care about all the big numbers, because it's not about big numbers, it's about the damage you're doing relative to how much health the enemies have. So if you get an arbitrary damage boost and the enemies get an arbitrary health boost, who gives a shit, right? And all it does is limit team comp options. Now you're less likely to bring a bunch of DPS you're way more likely to just front load and have one DPS unit with the event CE, and then everyone else, because everyone else is not going to have the event CE, so they can't personally do good damage, they're way better off being taunts or supports or stuff like that. And it's fine to have teams like that. It's not like there's anything wrong with having a team like that, but that's already a team style. It's not like those teams don't exist. That's actually the standard team anyway. At least for whales, like for the high end, you have really rare stuff. The standard thing to do anyway is bring 1 DPS and 5 supports. That's already the meta. So adding a damage CE just encourages the meta. It does not de-incentivize it. It doesn't shake things up. And it just punishes other team styles and stuff. So I don't like damage CEs at all. They're just a super limiting factor, and it just limits your options. Your damage dealer basically has to have it for the challenge quest. And for farming, it doesn't generally matter, and you don't even need the damage CE for farming, so who cares? But for like the challenge quest and the final main story boss fight and stuff, they're just scaled with the CE in mind, and therefore you just have less options than you always have. Why would I find that more enjoyable? I like more options, not less. So I can't think of a time where a damage CE actually made things more fun. And even when the damage CE has a good effect, it still can disproportionately affect things. And I feel this a lot because I'm big into soloing, and I use coup all the time. And I know this for a fact. The Nero Fest damage CEs, which always have guts on them, disproportionately help other solo units opposed to solo units that already have their own gut skill. Because, and it depends, because some units can't cast their gut skill ahead of time, and they're going to cast it and just get it, and then instantly need something else. But like Coup and Gramps and stuff like that, they generally will cast their guts ahead of time, and you try to figure it out so you know what turn to cast it on. So the turn it was going to wear off is the turn that it procs, right? And therefore your cooldown is already back, and then you cast it again. So you get 2 things out of your normal guts. Right, but if you have a gut CE, you can't do that because you can't cast guts ahead of time because it'll say no effect because the CE is taking up the gut slot, and so you can't cast it ahead of time. So what happens is you whenever guts the CE goes off, then you cast your own guts, and you're just getting 2 guts again. You already could get 2 stacks of guts, so it didn't help you at all. Where other units that don't do that and don't cast their guts ahead of time or don't have guts, they're actually getting an extra turn that they wouldn't normally get. Right, so someone like Proto-Coup is actually getting a much bigger advantage out of the Nero Fest CE than Coup does. And same for like Baldy or you know some other solo unit that isn't going to cast their guts ahead of time or just doesn't have guts, right? And that's annoying to me because and that's true all the time. Where like different units have pros and cons, but when you're allowed to use any CE you want, you can pick a CE that is more in line with them. So for example, on Gwaine, you don't cast his guts ahead of time like that. You generally cast it the turn he's going to die, and so if he has a gut CE, that's no problem. So he's incentivized to use his CE like, 2 goddesses, 3 legs, or whatever the other Nero Fest one is called, and stuff like the Guild Fest one and stuff. He's incentivized to use a CE like that. Like that actually works well for him, where Ku's not. But then Ku's more free to pick something else, like another CE, like a Black Grail or whatever, or Golden Sumo, etc., etc. So it's like the different pros and cons are nice, where when you have an event that is forcing you to use a certain style of CE, it just disproportionately, helps other units opposed to, not helping other units as much. And I don't like that. That's just not fun. I'd rather be like, okay, the fight already, the boss fights themselves will already incentivize and de-incentivize certain styles of unit. I don't want the CE to add into that, right? Because it's not fun, and that doesn't give you as many options. Yeah, Fujino is another one of those units for sure. Yeah, Gut CE is not good on Canis either. It really sucks because a lot of other units are like, oh wow, look, I get to have this CE that actually helps me. Maybe it wouldn't, outside of the event, maybe it wouldn't have been my best CE, but it's still like, oh yeah, Guts is good, this still really helps me, and then I get the event bonus, so I'm in really good shape. Where if you're like Ku or Fujino or Canis, you're like, okay, well, I get the event bonus, which you basically have to have, and then the effect isn't good for me at all. It basically does nothing, so I basically have no craft essence. Where everyone else is like, okay, maybe this isn't the best craft essence for me, but it's still good, it still helps me, and that frustrates the hell out of me, especially then too, you have a bunch of people that don't realize that you have this disproportionate, okay, that's time gated, okay. You have this disproportionate way that the CE affects everything, so. Well, Gwaine, his guts only lasts the 1 turn, but you could like, you could cast his gut skill immediately for the NP battery, right? And then by the time you go around and eating the guts, it will have come back. But that's a whole different kettle of fish to what we're talking about with like Ku and stuff. Yeah, Gawain's he's a pretty unique unit, honestly, in terms of the way he plays. There are setups though where you could play Gawain with certain mystic codes and stuff, where like you could have his guts and then have other survivability from maybe command codes, and like maybe use the evade from the mystic code and the heal, and then the command code heal, and then you actually get back in it, and the enemy's not going to NP for a while, and they're a lancer, so you're not going to die to normal card damage, and then maybe you do get your guts again. That would be pretty specific though. Although I suppose if you're not trying to test things for funsies, you're not fighting at class neutral, and you're actually counter-classing, that could actually happen. 3 Luvias, indeed. Actually, we'll go with Luvia, why not? Although we're fighting a Berserker, which is like the worst time to go with Luvia. I don't know if I've done a Curse Arm solo video, now that I think about it. That's actually kind of a shame. I know I've picked out like music and stuff that I thought really fit him and everything, but I think that I just did that for like an animation update or like as a boss or something. I don't think, now that you asked me, I don't think I actually have done a Curse Arm solo. I'm going to have to fix that. The main thing is, I need to make a list. Hey, Space, or Space Commentary or whatever the hell, thank you for the, 9-month resub. Jesus, dude. Thank you. Yeah, I know Thick Caster got a buff. She was already good though, but that's a reasonable buff though. I feel like she was in a situation where, yeah, she's good, but it was okay to buff her, so I don't really mind that. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate the support, guys. I really need to find a. I feel like a phony, man. Like I don't know how to. I never feel like I'm good at expressing gratitude, but I actually feel gratitude, but I don't know how to express it. I'm really bad at that. But yeah, I do appreciate everybody. What the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, I need to make a list. Because I don't like pumping out solo videos that aren't actually good. Now, I always feel like it's not like the thing that you solo necessarily has to be hard in general, but it needs to be hard and interesting for the unit. So, a good example of this is, I think the Matahari video I made. For most units in the game, that would be a very easy stage to solo. It was a Kentoki fight. You fight him in an interlude. Right, for most units, that would be it would be trivial for them to beat that. But because Matahari is a 1-star, she wasn't grailed, she has no hard survivability, and she has no burst damage. Because, for example, that fight, a lot of units won't have the survivability to survive a long time, but they'll have the damage to just kill Kentoki super fast and the fight's over, right? Or they have enough survivability not to just get dropped. Where Matahari does not have the, her NP doesn't do damage, right? And she's a 1-star, she absolutely does not have the damage to end that fight quickly. And she does not have the survivability to survive a long time. So that was actually a really difficult solo, and I had to actually really think about it and min-max the attack downs and the defense downs to maximize the amount that she could live and the amount of damage that she could do. And it was actually a fun solo, and I really liked it, right? So I don't want to just like, oh, hey, I haven't made a solo video for this unit. Let me just generically pick a whatever stage and just solo, and that's that. It's like I didn't make a Phantom solo video for so long until I found that stage. I'm like, wow, this was actually mechanically really engaging, and it was actually really fun. So I always try to look out for that stuff. Where I fuck up, and I need to rectify this, is a lot of times I am not even thinking about, oh, I should be on the lookout for a good stage for Curse Arm, or I should be on the lookout for a good stage for this unit or that unit. A lot of times I don't do that, so I need to make a list of like units that I'm really wanting to make solo videos for. And just keep them in mind. That way, if I notice a stage where, because sometimes you can make some pretty random stages actually mechanically interesting if you're, you know what unit would make sense. And I've always said, there's honestly like almost no unit in the entire game I wouldn't make a video for at least once. There's a lot of units I don't like, and they're not going to be like mainstays on my channel at all. But I don't mind making a one-off video, and I will stick to this forever, right? Even if I really don't like a unit, I try to. If I'm going to make a video for them, I'm going to try to make it a good video for the people that do like that unit. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I want to phone it in and make a shitty video, right? I might make like a quick meme at the start or at the end or something of like the fact that I don't like the unit or whatever, but I mean, I think that's fair enough. And I don't even do that often. I will always try to do a good, make a good video for the unit. And I'd be happy to, by the time FGO is over, I made one video for every unit at least, right? And then 30,000 for Ku, obviously. But you know, that's a pipe dream, but that would be nice. So really, no units off the table. It's just a matter of, you know, figuring it out, and I don't want to phone it in. Actually, I'll say this: I would be more willing to phone in a video on a unit that I like a lot because I've already made a lot of other videos for them, right? So like if I just want to kind of show off, oh hey, look, they happen to be able to beat this, but it's not that, you know, great of a video or whatever. That's more acceptable to me. That's not the goal, but that's more acceptable to me than if I do a one-off video for someone and then it's not done well. I would not want to do that, right? If I do a one-off video for someone, if it's going to be the only video I do for them, I want to make sure I do a good job, which I'm sure I failed at sometimes, but that's at least the idea that I'm going for. Alright, what the hell's going on here? Do I want people to die? I mean, kind of. Or to deny that this is more reliable if it's if things turn into a solo. Doesn't even matter which one is soloing, other than Ongre, he's not gonna solo it. And also there are some units, and maybe I'm foolish for this, and I think Rex is about to give me the look, but there are some units that I felt like I shouldn't make a video for because I so expect them to get an animation update and or above, and then I want to make the video then, right? You know, sometimes it's like you're holding your breath forever, and it's like this isn't working out as I had thought. I think Rex knows which unit I'm referring to here. Well, Sanson's been in videos, and he'll be in more videos because Sanson is one of my favorite characters. So, you know what? Fuck it. We'll just go ham here. I'll just big boy crits. Let's go. Or big girl crits. Excuse me. Now, that would really suck. I'll just let the cat out of the bag here. It would really suck if Nobu got an animation update and a buff, but then her animations were actually worse. That does not happen very often, but if it did happen, that would be really unfortunate. Yeah, I guess we could have done the crit damage skill. It wasn't really necessary, but I'm actually hoping, I don't know if I should say this. I mean, it's fine. So, you know, I made like that all-star video a while ago, and I really enjoyed that. I basically just made a team using units that made a vague amount of sense for the challenge quest. They weren't necessarily like counterpicks to the challenge quest, but I made a team of units that at least made somewhat of sense to bring to the stage. But then they were all units that I super liked, right? And I said in that video I was going to make another one, because there was like my other account, and there's a lot of other units that I super like that weren't in the video. And I'm hoping that this challenge quest will be a good challenge quest for that, because for a video like that, generally I think AoE stages are the best, because it lets you show off a lot of different units, and it's kind of easier. It's kind of easier to bring a lot of your favorite units, if a lot of your favorite units happen to be DPS, if you're fighting a lot of different enemies. Because if you're fighting one boss that's a Lancer, even if you could make a team that works made up of like 4 or 5 DPS and their classes are all over the place, it's so inefficient to do that, right? Where if the enemy is a bunch of different classes, it's a bit easier to justify bringing, oh, if I want to bring Achilles and Gilgamesh and Gwaine or something, right? It's a bit easier to justify that. Even if they're not like the best pick ever, at least they're more applicable, right? So I'm hoping this challenge quest, I could make it work where I bring a team of like, you know, basically make it the all-star video number 2. Because I said I was going to make one. And I haven't forgotten about it. I've just been kind of waiting for the right stage to do it on, and I'm hoping this one will work. I don't know though. I can't quite remember the gimmicks of this challenge quest. I know it's AoE. I think there was like a burn gimmick and something, and there was like a lot of annoying debuffs or something. And so that would kind of incentivize to bring some like units that have anti-debuff and stuff, and I don't know how many of my favorites. Because not only do I need to bring my favorites, but I'd want to bring favorites that were mostly not in the other video. right? And so I don't know if that would actually work out. Yeah, I know there's a lot of alter egos. It was like they were all their normal class, and they all, after you break the first health bar, they all turn into an alter ego. So that's kind of wonky. So maybe this isn't the right challenge course to do it, but I'll see. I feel like I'd have to like bring at least 1 or 2 units that I was kind of just iffy on, opposed to like really liking, like super liking. So I don't know if it'll work or not. We'll see. I mean, I've always said with Sanson, you need to do a lot of like things to fix him because he's just so fucking busted. I don't think just generically slapping humanoid on his thing would actually help that much. I would much rather, like, he's actually really hard to fix. Actually, it's really easy to fix if they were willing to do things outside of the box, which they're not. Like, what you need to do, okay, so Sanson is very abnormal in that he's horrible, and I'm kidding. He's very abnormal in that, his third skill has such a large damage boost and it lasts 3 turns. Generally, if they give someone such a large damage up, it doesn't last 3 turns like that, and on such a short cooldown, right? That's not normal. And so if you just generically switched out the humanoid or the human for humanoid or added humanoid on top of it, it's kind of busted, right? Now, I still think it would be balanced because Sanson is awful still, but like I think the reason why they don't do it is because like that. It's because, well, when we made it 3 turns on a short cooldown at such a high number, it's kind of wonky, right? So I'm like, there's so many ways you can fix this. One, you can just nerf it and then buff it, right? You nerf how long it lasts, or you nerf the number. Like, I don't think any Sanson fan would complain, and I'm sure they're afraid someone would complain. They don't ever want to take things away from the player. They don't ever want to take something away from a skill. Because there's that one guy that like loves using Sanson against human enemies, right? And he wants that maximum damage bonus. But let's be real, I think 99.99999% of the player base would be totally fine if Sanson's multiplier was toned down a few %, right? But then it had humanoid on it, right? And then maybe they added a side effect like an MP battery to it or whatever. Like, I think that would be overwhelmingly welcome. But they never do buffs like that. And if you wanted to do a buff, there's no way to do it gracefully, like without them having to do something outside of the box. So you could say, okay, well you could add it does damage to human and humanoid, but then the humanoid part of it's a different number. That would be really awkward, and lore-wise it makes no sense, because lore-wise he should do more damage to humanoid instead of just human. Like, he absolutely should. He just doesn't. And it wouldn't make sense that he does even more damage or lasts even longer against human and opposed to servants and stuff. That doesn't really make any sense, right? So it's all kind of weird. But if I was them, I honestly, if I was them, I wouldn't worry about nerfing and buffing and, like, you know, evening it out. I wouldn't do that. I would just add the anti-humanoid damage to it and leave the multiplier and leave the 3 turns. Yes, that's really strong. That is really powerful against servants. But it's okay because Sanson is awful and his attack stat is terrible and he has no hard survival or anything like that. So if he has, oh no, we actually gave Sanson something good, like, that's okay. Even if Sanson's third skill becomes actually super strong, and they're just afraid because, you know, anti-humanoid is applicable so often, you know, because you fight servants all of the time, that, you know, his skills will become applicable super often. And for real, if he was fighting an evil rider, it'd be nuts. If you're fighting Mev, he is now getting his bonus as an assassin against a rider. He is now getting his anti-evil bonus, which is huge, and that's the one good thing he has. And now he's getting the anti-servant thing, right? So, I mean, he's just going to be, like, doing crazy big damage. Funnily enough, he's still not going to be getting the most damage out of anyone because he still has that low attack stat, and he doesn't have, like, an attack up or a buster up or a crit up or an NP up. So honestly, he's still not going to be eclipsing, like, the really big, you know, bruisers out there, but he's going to be keeping up, and it'd be rather impressive for a 2-star to be keeping up that well. But I think that's fair enough. It's okay for our servant to work that way. And we have Kud, you know, as a 3-star doing insanely well in comparison to 5-stars and stuff. And you've got, you know, Ushi and you've got Hans and all that. Yeah, sure. You know, Hans is not as good as, you know, Merlin, but he's still really, really good. And same for David and that kind of thing. It's okay for Sanson to be one like a staple low star. That's fine. I don't think it'd be game breaking at all. Unfortunately, I don't think they're even thinking about this stuff, so it's probably not going to happen. It would be nice if they would give him something, funny enough, lore-wise, he absolutely should ignore Guillotine Breaker. Like, even though it's called Guillotine Breaker, he absolutely would get around that. It's actually kind of funny if you, like, read how his abilities work and everything. It's kind of weird that he actually doesn't have something like... It's honestly, though, kind of bizarre. There's almost no effect in-game that would actually represent his MP properly. The closest effect that would represent his MP properly is Insta-Death. It's just Insta-Death is such a trash effect that never works. That doesn't feel right. So, but it would be... Pierce and Vulnerability, they normally use on things that have, like, you know, defense-busting abilities, right? Like, they get around, you know, defenses and armor and that kind of stuff, or they have, like, insane punch and stuff. That's not really how his MP works. His MP is very bizarre, so it's kind of hard to represent it properly. It would be nice if he did something, though. But an easy way to fix any unit is just add practical effects to their skills. In terms of thematic and what people want out of Sanson, anytime people talk about Sanson on Reddit, on Discords, on the wiki, in their stream chat, and everyone that talks about Sanson, everybody wants them to fix the humanoid thing. Everybody wants that. But honestly, and as such they probably should, but you can fix Sanson without doing that. You could keep Sanson's skill this absurdly stupid niche that even though lore-wise his skill exists for the same reason Izo's and Nightingale's exist, and yet for some reason theirs is humanoid and his is human. But you could give him a large buster up. You could give him a battery. You could give him Stargent up. You could give him, you know, an evade. You could give him, you know, basic stuff like that could still make Sanson a much better unit, right? There's a lot of stuff you could do. So it's not like you have to fix the humanoid thing. Yeah, I know, they originally had Dion and all that. It had the same name. It was all very silly. Well, to be fair, Rex, I think what's going on there is it's because, you know, they're friends. They're supposed to have similarities and all that. Where with Dion and Antoinette, I think it was an accident. It was like an accident. Or with Enkidu and Gilgamesh, they did it on purpose. It was intentional. So. But I do agree, though, just naming it Guillotine Breaker is stupid because it has nothing to do with what the skill actually does. It's obvious they were just like, name it this, right? They had no idea what to do, and they didn't really think about it because the ability itself has literally nothing to do with it. Her story has nothing to do. It's like she didn't avoid execution for herself or anyone else, right? She was executed by Sanson's son and everything, so it's like, I guess he was named Sanson too, and his name is slightly different. His name was like Henry Sanson instead of Charles Henry Sanson or something like that. There's like a really minor difference between their names. But yeah, it's all pretty silly. But yeah, back on point, I do need to make a Curse Arm solo video because apparently I've never done that. And there's actually loads of music that's actually very thematic to Curse Arm. There's a lot of... You can use a lot of, like, darker themes and stuff, and that's kind of cool, so... Yeah, a lot of skills in FGO are actually named after NPs. Like, they're representing an NP. And generally, like, the game in their bio, they'll kind of be like, yeah, it's obviously in a lesser way, but it's just for gameplay purposes. Like, they just straight up say that for quite a few of them. The thing is, obviously, I think DW, Aniplex, Type Moon was holding their writers and stuff to a lower standard at the beginning of FGO because I don't think they cared. However, some of the writers took it upon themselves to put in a lot of effort into the characters they were making. And so some of the FGO specific servants that were made up for day one, some of them are pretty well made and are fleshed out pretty well, and some of them are not. And nowadays, I think they try to hold their writers to a higher standard, although they still sometimes, you know, are just catering and pandering and trying to make a quick buck and all that kind of stuff. But I think for the most part, they put a lot more effort into it now than they did day one, so... And Kojiro doesn't even have an NP, so that's the thing. Bloody monkeys, by the way. If I had known this was a monkey, I would have brought Gramps. Like, even though I wouldn't have gotten Angra Bond, I don't care. I would have brought Gramps so we could actually kill him. You find it funny that Gramps is the only unit in the game that can do that. Yeah, it was a bug at first, and then he patched it and he fixed it, and then everyone was like, but that was awesome, and then they put it back in. That is one of the few times I will give DW a lot of credit. That is some nice adaptive. God, they're so in the box so often and with their blinders on, but that was a good moment of like actually listening, be like, yeah, you know what, that does actually work and fit him really well, and it doesn't break anything, and it is okay, so they put it back in, right? That's pretty abnormal. It's really easy for devs to just tunnel vision it and just, you know, fix a bug and that's that, and they, you know, it's like, oh, it was, you know, they're not gonna keep a bug because it's good, right? So for like the 5 people that don't know, when Gramps kills something with his NP, it does not have to proc insta death. If just his NP is the killing blow on an enemy, it will skip their death animation. And not only that, but it looks amazing because Gramps' NP ends with like the white feathers like kind of, you know, covering the screen and like sweeping it off, and as like the feathers go away, they're just gone. Like they were there, and then the feathers go by, and then they're just not there anymore. Like they're gone, right? Which is super thematic to how Gramps works and stuff. Lore-wise, and so they don't do a death animation. They don't have no dialogue. They're just dead, right? There's no, oh no, I'm dying and fading away. And I was like, no, they're just gone, right? And it fits him so well, and it's amazing. But it was actually just a random glitch when it was first in the game. It was just a random bug that was just introduced probably because he was a new unit and there was something was fucked up with the coding or whatever, and it would skip the death animation. And after a little while, they patched it and fixed it. But then people were like, dude, that was awesome, and we want it back. And so they're like, okay, so then like the next patch they put it back in. So yeah, that was awesome. I can actually try to show this off real quick, but we need to. It looks coolest when you fight an enemy that like is like a servant or whatever. When you fight a trash mob, it's pretty easy to not even notice. When you fight a servant, though, it's really noticeable. And also when you fight the freaking monkeys, because the monkeys don't die, they run away. But if it's Gramps, they don't get to run away. So. Like how we're just having to go through stage after stage. Okay, well, maybe it's a servant. They almost never make these servants though until later, so it's probably not. But I wonder if anyone has a Gramps slotted so I can just keep my Angra. Yep, but it doesn't have an NP, so... Ixnay on the Angra Bond. We want Gramps to do some degree of damage because he's NP1, and Gramps at NP1 is kind of disappointing, so we won't go K-Scope. Try to get his NP the old-fashioned way here. I've always said, like, Gramps doesn't have really any depth to him as a character, right? But in terms of, like, just being awesome and you know, looking cool and having the awesome voice acting and all that, he's really, really awesome, so. Go for a crit so we get a more NP gain here. But I'll do it in slow-mo. But you know, even dragons do normally have like that fade out animation when they die, like kind of like a shadow servant or something. So we'll at least get to see that. We're not gonna get, you know, the super special thing with our first skill, but whatever. Gramps' buff was pretty whack. It was pretty bizarre, but it's ultimately still makes him better. It's kind of a specific buff, but it's all right. He should definitely do 100k. I mean, we have the giant defense down from the Mystic Code and everything. This should work. Yeah, if we instant death on our normal attacks, that would suck. You see, and then they're just dead. Like, and I love that the loot's just there, right? Like, I love that. It's amazing. It really is one of my favorite things in FGO because it's such a little. I wish they did stuff like that more often, like little tiny things to kind of just expand on like the character, their vibe, and like what they're about and stuff. Like little things, because like that has no effect on gameplay or anything, right? But it's so Gramps, and it's unique to him only, right? And so it's really nice. So I had to kill the music because this song was about the most ridiculous thing for Gramps' NP. Yeah, Gramps has a passive where he has a chance to insta-death on normal attacks. So, I like how that's the ending of the floor, because it's time-gated. You might as well do all this shit down here, so... I think these are the last two paths, I think. Although one of these might lead to another path. Yeah, I like his buff, ultimately, because it's just unique. It's, you know, it requires you to kind of play in a slightly different way if you want to go for it. But then sometimes it's better to just play in the standard way and not go for it, so... But you can still get some just pretty generic value out of it no matter what. So, overall, that's a pretty well done buff, I would say. Guys, Gramps is obviously just Ongar wearing armor. Clearly. Yeah, Gramps is a lot more fun to play and is a lot better if he's NP2 or higher. Very much so. Has some issues at NP1, and it's also just not very satisfying. The thing is, Gramps, although has a lot of death imagery and he has a lot of effects that, you know, help with killing things, it's not like Gramps, he's not the incarnation of death. Like, you know, he's kind of like an avatar of death, if you will, but he's not like, if they ever want to add a servant that they're just going 1,000,000,000%, like, I think they should save it, that's my point. You don't want to make, like Pale Rider is actually closer to being death itself, but he still's not. If in case they ever want to do, like, the Grim Reaper, or just death, or whatever, that's where they should save the servant, where they go completely ham with, like, Pierce Invulnerability, super high insta-death chance, ignore defense, you know, all that stuff, right? That's when they should do that, in my opinion. Like, if you add the Grim Reaper, he should have ignore defense every time he NPs, he should have the highest death chance, a lot of death resistance down, he should have Pierce Invulnerability, you know, all the stuff, right? You just, this NP is hitting, you bastard, right? Like, you make it like that. Like, that would be awesome, so... Yeah, he's more of, like, you know, an avatar of it, more so than just being straight up death. Like, there's nothing in the game that... Like, fucking Shiki. Shiki's not death either, Jesus Christ. Not even close. Makes them lead, kind of. Guys, Lee was death all along. Actually, the Grim Reaper. Fucking kid, waiver, man. DPS waiver. You know what? We should have cast his buffs, and we should have done the crits and everything, just to see what we get. I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing, though. I mean, Pale Rider is like the closest thing to like a pure incarnation of death that they've done so far. He's not quite like the full-on embodiment of it, but that's kind of... He's close, right? He's close, but if to me, like, if they did it for Pale Rider, sure, I'm not gonna cry over it, but I would still prefer if they were gonna go like a, you know, full, you know, commitment to this. I think the Grim Reaper is the best way to go, or just death. You just make a servant death, right? This is from BlazBlue Fantasy. This is Tiamat's theme, which is kind of a funny thing to say in an FGO stream. As far as I'm aware, if you got the CCC event from the Rare Prism shop and you beat the Kara fight, you cannot repeat it. Because then, but it will allow you to go on and like do the other wanted quests and stuff. I have not confirmed that myself, but as far as I'm aware, if you do beat it, you can't repeat it. Because that's generally the way the interludes are done. But if someone has actually, you know, got first-hand experience, that would be nice to know. Because I do not have first-hand experience with that. Pale Rider is kind of a mix of disease and death. It's kind of like the embodiment of like how humans have perceived calamity and disease and that kind of stuff. Basically, he can materialize as Ragnarok, right? It's based on like, it's basically the perception. He'll take the form that like his master kind of perceives death and disease and stuff. So like it says like if depending on what his master, how the master views death and mortality and all these things, his like NP and everything could manifest literally Ragnarok. But it could also, you know, represent other takes on death, like the Four Horsemen, or like just like the Spanish flu, stuff like that. Like he's taken many different forms. That's kind of how he's kind of a really fucked up version of nursery rhyme, because nursery rhyme will take the appearance and behavior and stuff kind of based on their master, and he's kind of that as well, just in a much darker, more fucked up way. However, he's also unbelievably difficult to summon, and most people that would actually view death in a way like where it would be Ragnarok or something, they wouldn't actually be able to summon him generally. He's generally just not something you're going to summon. He's a pretty bizarre thing. Yeah, it's always good to quit the app to be safe anyway, but if it's like the last main interlude they did, you can't repeat it, so. That was like the Christmas one, or whatever. Hail Rider, like, is just the embodiment of disease and death, basically, just straight up. And he just takes different forms based on, like I said, his master and that kind of thing. And like in his own words, you know, he's manifested as all kinds of things. He's manifested as, you know, pestilence, which is kind of his most famous incarnation, I would say, which is kind of, so that's kind of what they kind of stick to. But he's also, you know, manifested as like the Black Death and the Spanish flu, and then the, you know, his NP can like manifest as Ragnarok and other things like that. But pretty much he's just disease, death stuff. I mean, he has a lot of abilities that like feed into that. Different cultures and stuff takes on disease and death, like pestilence and war and death. The riders, the Four Horsemen, right? And then like, you know, Ragnarok and all that other stuff. So he's got a lot of abilities that kind of go back to. It's true, yeah, that's true. The pestilence isn't just the Bible, but that's fine, right? It's like he's all these different cultures and stuff's take on these things, so it works out fine. And pestilence is really famous from the biblical stuff, so that's obviously I think what they're going to pull from more when they kind of go with that side of things. So, but we'll see. You know, he's just got a lot of abilities that just feed into that. We don't know every little thing about him yet. He has a character material though, but it didn't go into everything. It's funny though, because who summoned him, it's actually, dude, it's a mixture of really interesting, but also really depressing and sad, right? It's really fucked up. So he's summoned by a diseased kid that is going to die. They're terminally ill and they're going to die, right? And they're quite young, which this unfortunately happens to a lot of people, right? There's a lot of people that die really young like that. And I mean, it's hard to even imagine what that's like, having to come to try to understand mortality and everything at that young of an age. Think back when you were like, never mind when you were like 10 and stuff, imagine when you were like 5 and 6 and stuff and trying to really come to terms with dying, and you've literally barely even lived, right? It's really a fucked up mental space to be in, and there's a lot of stuff that a young person can't even fathom yet at that age, and so it's really messed up. But anyway, so that's his master, and he's really influenced by what his master's view on death is, right? So it's like a mixture of like interesting and almost heartwarming, but also really sad and depressing, right? The whole thing is really fucked up. Alright, let's see what we're doing. I'm hoping these are the only 2 paths left. I mean, from like a story perspective and everything, it's done really well. It's really interesting. It's just, you know, kind of sad. Is this really worth me using apples on? I mean, I gotta stream something, so I guess I'll use some. This event, though. I honestly cannot make up my mind on what my favorite Servant is in Fate Strange Fake. I'm really not sure because there's so much stuff that I like in it, and that they're all so unique and everything. I don't know. It's normally I'm pretty good at figuring out what I relate to the most or what I find the most awesome or whatever. But it's hard with Fate Strange Fake, man. There's a lot of stuff I really like in Fate Strange Fake. Now there's some definite winners and losers for me. Like I don't like Avenger Hercules at all. I just do not care for him. It's just I like Archer Hercules a fuckload, but he's only in it for like a page and a half or something. So you know that's a big rip. But yeah, I mean like Jack is awesome, and he was just he's a way better take on Jack than Apoc was, even though it technically wasn't Jack. Let's not go into that. You know, and then you got you know, obviously Richard, the meme almost, and then you know, I love Enkidu. Enkidu's awesome. I've always super liked Enkidu. And then you know, obviously you got Pale Rider, which is just so badass and unique and different and stuff. Like it's tough, man. I love the new Jack, definitely. He's not a mimic of anything. Jack in Fate Strange Fake is the embodiment of the mystery of Jack the Ripper, because we don't know who Jack the Ripper was, right? Now, over time, science has actually boiled it down a lot, and it's pretty much down to 2 candidates, but we're probably never going to know for sure if it was both or one of them. Like, you know, we're just never going to know, most likely. But because we don't know, he basically can embody all the different people that we thought it might have been and stuff. So he can materialize all these, you know, different people. But he is the heroic spirit that is the embodiment of the mystery of Jack the Ripper. Where Jack from Apoc is not bad. It's just not. Jack from Apoc is not Jack the Ripper in any way. It's not. Like, they've both in real life and in Fate, there was a Jack the Ripper. There was a Jack the Ripper. And that's, again, just like in real life, there is a Jack the Ripper that was responsible for those killings in the Fate universe. But history doesn't know who it was. Like in real life, we don't know who it was, so that it materializes things in an odd way. Jack in Apoc is not the embodiment of those mysteries. She's not one of the potential killers. She was not involved in any of the killings. Jack is a collection of a bunch of dead kids that died in London, and they had combined and formed a wraith that had murdered people in a fashion that was very similar to the killings of Jack the Ripper, and so it was kind of like conflated with the actual killings, which is you might say that's kind of silly. It is what it is. But basically, you know, the killings that these kids did were conflated with the killings that Jack the Ripper did, and in that way, that's why when they're summoned, they're kind of known as Jack the Ripper, even though they're just these random various kids. Some of them died from like abortion. Some of them were just like thrown away and starved to death. Some of them were murdered. Like these kids had died in all kinds of different methods, and that's why, like with all the Atalante stuff, you know, you got all the different kids and stuff. Basically, she committed killings that were conflated with the actual killings, right? But she wasn't actually responsible for them. She was just, or they, because there's some of them are boys, I think. But they had killed people that, like, I guess the public had perceived as Jack the Ripper killings, even though they weren't. They just happened to you know, be similar. Or meanwhile, there are actual Jack the Ripper killings that an actual person had done, and that's and Joan of Arc actually says this, like how she had kind of gotten mixed, and the anime actually did a good job of this. Actually, that's one of the few things I think the anime did good. They alluded to Jack the Ripper from Fate Strange Fake in the Apoc anime, where Joan of Arc says, like, you know, they were basically mixed up with them, in quotations, or with him, or something. I can't remember how she words it exactly. And she's referring to the Fate Strange Fake Jack the Ripper, you know, the actual killings and stuff, and so, and that's why in Fate Strange Fake, and it actually confuses Jack over there, if he wants to, he can take the form of Jack from Apoc, and he has no idea why, because he's like, this isn't one of the things, like, what is this? So he doesn't understand why, but like, it's, you know, because she got conflated with the killings and stuff. That's actually kind of funny. I don't even like Jack the Ripper from Apoc, but I find that bit in Fate Strange Fake kind of funny, so. I don't think Gil's gonna die early, because if he was, he would have already died. Like that whole cliffhanger bit and stuff, if he was just gonna die there, he just would have died there. They wouldn't have done all the cliffhangery stuff. I think they're gonna use that to nerf him, because up to this point he'd been holding back and stuff, and he'd been trying harder than normal, and at that last fight he had with Hercules, he was you know, going way more ham, and Hercules was having an oh shit moment. But then, like, for the story to play out the way they want it to and stuff, they need Gilgamesh not to be doing that anymore. So that was like a really good way to kind of take him out of it. And so they're going to do one of two things. He's either not going to really come back until like they need him again and for a very specific moment or something, or he's going to be nerfed for most of the rest of the story because he's fucked up. So, and that's another way. Like, it's basically a way to keep Gilgamesh from being ridiculous, and not ruin the story, right? So, and we'll see. I will see what they do. You know, they can either have him not play a serious role anymore, more of an advisory role, or he's just a lot weaker. Or he goes Kid Gilgamesh. Some people think he's going to go Kid Gilgamesh because he still has access to the noble phantasms that he gave his master, and one of those happened to be the Potion of Youth. So some people think he's going to randomly do that, and that'll be like a way for him to heal himself or whatever. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know if Gil's going to be involved with the bull again. I think maybe Enkidu is than other people. I'm not sure if it's going to be straight up Gil and Enkidu again. I think it's very likely Gil is either going to be way weaker for the rest of the story, or he's going to be, you know, pretty MIA and, you know, very, you know, fucked up until near the end of the story, and then maybe he goes back to full strength, or just back to like some degree of his strength or whatever. But I'm not sure if he's going to be like involved with the bull stuff, because the bull stuff seems to be coming up pretty soon. And regardless of what they're doing with Gilgamesh, you know, he's still alive and he's like hooked up to like, you know, a tree battery or some shit. Whatever they're gonna do with him, die, live, come back, weakened, full strength, whatever, I don't think they're gonna do it super soon. Because it would almost defeat the purpose of the whole plot line if they did that, right? And this is like a good excuse to get Enkidu off his ass to go do stuff, right? Well, basically just Enkidu is trying to stabilize him and, you know, keep him alive. And, you know, nature stuff. It's weird, man. I will say that whole plot line is a little contrived, though, because, like, it's like a bunch of miracle RNG that, like, the situation even happened, and it's all kind of silly, but, you know, storytelling, I suppose. It's fun. I do like, though, how that final fight went. It was really obvious that if Gilgamesh gives his shit, he would beat the living tar out of Hercules, and Hercules only survives on a really lucky bullshit technicality, right? And then obviously Ishtar stuff. And so many people still think Hercules is like so much stronger than Gil, and this is like, oh, please. Oh, are you talking about the whole punch to the face thing, Fury? I do enjoy that. She's not my favorite character by any means, but I do kind of like that because Hercules is kind of showboating and acting like I'm the best thing ever. You better use Aya or you're not gonna have a chance. Boom! And he just gets like knocked the fuck out. It's fucking hilarious. Like he's, you know, they have like this whole moment of trying to like hype him up and make him seem like the best thing ever. And he just, the old-fashioned fisticuffs, you know, wreck him, which I think is hilarious. It's like, look how special I am, and then just some good old-fashioned fisticuffs get around it, so. Yeah, Watcher's a class, and it has been for a really long time. Funnily enough, oh no, there is a Watcher, it's just that they're normally not supposed to be a Watcher. Like, they invented the Watcher class a long time ago, and then the first Watcher we have in a story is not supposed to manifest as a Watcher. Like, they're supposed to manifest, and I swear he did this on purpose, just to, like, do references and be silly. This is Remember from Armored Core, by the way. Really famous song from Armored Core, actually. Anyway, another class that we've never seen before, but was made canonical a long time ago, is Gatekeeper. And so this character that we've never seen before manifests as a Watcher, which we've never seen a Watcher before, and is actually supposed to be a Gatekeeper, which, although we've known about, we've never had one this whole time. So it's kind of funny. It'd be kind of like if some servant, manifests as a Fly Swatter class, and then like, oh, my true class is actually Gunner, right? It'd be one of those things. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get around the pelt. There's many ways to do it. You know, you've got old-fashioned, you know, fisticuffs. You've got items that, you know, aren't from human history and things like that. Like, there's a variety of ways of doing it. And some effects just are going to ignore it and things like that. Yeah, Beowulf would definitely, I think, beat Avenger Hercules. Now, to be clear, though, Avenger Hercules generally doesn't exist. It's not a standard thing that actually exists. You only get it by summoning... Okay, let's go through all the steps that you have to go through to get Avenger Hercules, okay? First of all, Angra has to have been summoned at some point into a Grail War, and Angra has to have died and been absorbed by the Grail, and then done all the nonsense, you know, that we see in, like, Fates of Night and all that, you know, with the Angra juice and all that. So this is already a pretty specific set of circumstances here. And then you need to summon Archer Hercules, and then you need to have access to Angra Grail Juice, and just because Angra is corrupting the Grail doesn't mean you necessarily actually have access to the Grail Juice all the time, right? In Fate Zero, it didn't show up until the very end, and all kinds of stuff. There's like a lot of things you need to you know, most people aren't going to have access to Angra Grail Juice, even if you're in a timeline that has it, right? And then you have to get Hercules Archer altered by the Grail Juice, right? And then you get Avenger Hercules that has like his own NPs and all this stuff. Opposed to like the normal ones he would have as an archer and stuff. This is not something that is actually going to happen generally, right? This is not a typical a series of events at all. It's actually like needle in a haystack. So yeah, it's not normally you're not. It would actually be Archer. Normally Archer Hercules versus Beowulf, which I think. I think Archer Hercules would fare far better. Far better because of 9 lives. I mean, 9 lives is just... He's busted as hell. Where if it is Avenger Hercules for some insane reason versus Beowulf, I think Beowulf would win. I don't think... From all the wacky stuff Avenger Hercules can do, none of it is actually a very good answer to Beowulf's main NP. And if you read what Beowulf's main NP is, it is horrifying. And I think that would absolutely kill Avenger Hercules. And honestly, he doesn't even have to take the NP form of it. I think he would be capable of just killing him with his bare hands anyway. That being said, I don't think it would be easy. It's not like Avenger Hercules is just going to fall over and die. I will say the one circumstance where Avenger Hercules would get absolutely wrecked is if Beowulf's weapons have been thrown away or destroyed for whatever reason, and Beowulf is able to activate Grindelbuster. That would absolutely just end Avenger Hercules. Like, without plot armor, he has no answer to that in any way. However, I do think it's actually quite possible for Beowulf to just kill Avenger Hercules the old-fashioned way, but that would be much harder. And it's still possible for Avenger Hercules to use some of his NPs to kill Beowulf. But I do think it favors Beowulf very much so. Beowulf is designed quite well for taking him out. I like Flat a lot. Flat is awesome. Flat is one of my favorite masters. My favorite master ever is probably Sisigo, right? Mordred's master. I think he's my favorite master, especially like all these characterization in the books and stuff. He's probably my favorite. But I do really like, let's see, I like Flat a lot. I like, Bizet's pretty cool. She has fuck all screen time. Oh, Kozuki's super awesome. I'm sure I'm just not thinking of some. There's a lot of masters out there now, so it's easy to forget some off the cuff. I don't hate Klaus, but I don't hype him either. That kind of character normally just doesn't really appeal to me. I don't hate him though. Like, I definitely don't hate him, and I think. And he's, again, definitely better in the books. He's definitely one of those. I really do like some of his conversations with Chiron and stuff. That was actually pretty cool stuff. So, I mean, I think he's written well, definitely. But he's just not quite my kind of character. But I do think he's written actually very well, so. I mean, Grindelbuster is basically, he gets his real strength temporarily, which makes him just ridiculously strong. And I mean, there's more to it than that too. And it's also like an ability that you can't use instinct on it, right? Like we won't get that like perception thing against it. It won't work. Mystic Eyes. Speaking of, thank you for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate it. I like Kurotsugu after like his character arc completes. If it's just him in Fate Zero, I don't really like him. But like his total character arc from beginning to end is ultimately a character that I like. There's a lot of masters that don't have as much character. They normally put a lot more effort into the characterization of the servants. So a lot of masters end up being a lot more two-dimensional. Thankfully, there are exceptions to that. I think the first huge exception to that was Kotomine. Kotomine had so much to his character. They did a really good job at that. Not only does he have a lot to his character, but like he changes and evolves and stuff. Like his feelings about how he killed his wife actually changed, you know, and stuff like that. Really interesting character. So yeah, Kotomine was done really well. I'm gonna BRB real quick. I'm gonna get water. I've gotta hydrate, boys. Alright, I'm back. So yeah, Sissy-Go though is definitely my favorite master for, and there's a lot of other masters that I do like, but he's definitely my favorite. And for a few reasons. One, because he values parenting, being a good father, more than manga stuff. And you know, I don't like bad parenting, right? I like good parenting, right? So that's a plus. You know, he's actually got a fairly fleshed out story and everything, and then he's I know on the surface he's a fun character. I really like characters like that. And then he's pretty you don't get as much of this in the anime, though they had some of it. He's actually really perceptive. He's actually really good at understanding other people and figuring them out and all that. So he's awesome. Like he's definitely my favorite, just because it's a character arc that I really like and relate to, and then he's also just like a cool character on top of that as well. But yeah, there's definitely a few. There's a few masters that I think are actually pretty interesting. It's more than Kotomine and Sissy-Go and stuff. There's a few good ones. How about those Masters of Red, though? Getting literally no screen time at all. Which they did that so they could cut down on the amount of characters they had to make and actually write. Shoutouts, I can't remember, I haven't watched the APOC anime in a while, but it pretty universally cuts out a lot of character depth and stuff. But in the books, Karna's main objective was still actually saving his original master, even though he'd never met them. That was overwhelmingly his main goal. I don't remember if the anime actually explain that at all. I don't remember. I hope they did. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, because they cut most characterization for a lot of characters. Rip a VC Braun, by the way. It does. I'm guessing it does in a pretty vague way based on what chat's saying. Like, it was a pretty minor thing. Karna's kind of the best, man. These stages. Ugh, I did not remember this whole 3-unit gimmick thing. I didn't remember that at all, but guess it is what it is. I remember that like some of the early stages, but I didn't remember that being like a recurring thing. Honestly, I think the Apoc books characterize Karna pretty well. Although Apoc still has some, you know, plot issues. You know, I honestly find Protoku's anti-beast niche comes up a decent amount. There's a decent amount of bosses that you end up fighting that have it, and some like major stories and stuff. And a lot of times there's mini bosses and things like chimeras and all that can be really annoying. So, and you've got that fight. You got that fight in the New Year's event, where the challenge quest, where you fight Benny, but before Benny, you fight the 3 fucking monkeys. And having a quick lancer is meta there. And you're fighting a beast, so you're a quick lancer, and he's anti-beast, so he works great. I can't remember, did I make a video of that? I remember when they originally did the event, I did it, but I never made a video of it, where I used like Protoku as a DPS, but I never made a video of it. And when they did the rerun, I would hope I did a video of it then, but I actually don't remember, which is really bad of me. I'm actually going to look this up because I really want to know, and I'm going to be so annoyed with myself if I didn't do this. Oh god, I might not have done it. I wonder if I recorded it and I never edited it, because wow, did I not do this? It's funny because I know I did it this way like 3 times, like off camera, but I'm thinking I may not have recorded it. Wow. That sucks. And it's not, because we're never going to get that challenge quest again. I guess I could do it on NA, but I don't have, I mean, you could do it with a level 70 Protoku. You don't need a Grailed one, I'm sure. But it'd be infinitely cooler with a Grailed Protoku, which I have on JP. Maybe I'm using like fucking YouTube search function instead of like actually looking through my videos. Let me find it here. Like I know it would have been posted around like when they did like the Yang challenge quests and stuff. Wow, I don't think I did. Holy shit, dude, I didn't. What the fuck is wrong with me? I'm so dumb. Okay, see, this is my mindset. I remember this, right? Oh my god, I feel so dumb right now. Okay, so when the original Vint came out, I did it without Protoku, and I remember someone in like my comment section that we were talking, and we were like, yeah, we probably could use Protoku for this, because he's quick, and he's got anti-beast and stuff. And then I tested it, I was like, yeah, it works really well. But I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna make a video of this, I just made a video, you know, fuck it, I'm not. And I remember even thinking, if they rerun it, I'll do it for the rerun, right? And the rerun has happened now, and I remember beating it. I used Protoku. I remember like posting, I think, pictures of it on the Discord or something. I know I did that. I don't understand why I didn't make a fucking video of it. Jesus Christ. And I made a video for the Anastasia fight. I think, why am I saying, I think it said fucking, Yang fight. Why am I, Jesus, what's wrong with me? Anyway, so yeah, I posted 2. I posted 2 videos for the Yang fight, and I didn't post a single one for the monkey fight with Benny. What the fork? I must have been like just been like, oh well, there's the other video, and it's like, yeah, you just switch out Protoku instead of Evil Cat or whatever, and it's fine. We don't need to make a video for that. I absolutely should have made a video for that. I am so sad right now. I'm a Protoku fan. Like he's one of my absolute favorite characters, and I'm always like, there's not enough videos I can make for Protoku, and then I'm apparently throwing away. I have a feeling I may have recorded it and I never edited it and posted it, so I should check my hard drive. But you know what? Oh my god, I even remember now. I'm pretty sure I did that. Oh my god. Okay, so for those who don't know, when I record things on Mobazim, I keep the files on my phone until unless I'm wanting to back them up or until I go to edit it, and then I move it to my computer. And sometimes what can happen is, when I take something from my phone to my computer, I don't take it off my phone. I keep it on my phone and I copy it to my computer, so I have 2 copies of it in case something goes wrong. But this can result in my phone having a bunch of old videos on it that I don't need anymore. And so every once in a while, I'll go through my phone's videos and oh, okay, I already made a video for that, I'll delete it. I already made a video for that, I'll delete it. But also videos that I'm planning on doing way later down the line, I just keep on my phone. I'm almost positive, some of you probably know where this is going, I saw the Protoku setup for that challenge quest that I was supposed to just post later, and I was like, oh yeah, I already did that one. I already edited and posted that one, and I deleted it. I'm almost positive I did that. And my small brain was conflating that video with me posting the Yang video, because it's the same event. I'm almost positive that's what I did. So, that really sucks. Congratulations, you played yourself. Yeah, I did. That is so lame. Well, that video's never gonna see the light of day. Yeah, I think it was Bedivere, Protoku, Robin, and then the back was David, Billy, something. I don't remember what, maybe George or something. I'm pretty sure that was the team. And I absolutely remember playing that too. Jesus, I'm pissed now. Sometimes you slip through your fingers, man. Yeah, they could have used Siegfried a lot better in Apoc. Alright, are we done? Did we do everything down here? I think the only things left are the free quests. I can't actually do any more in this event until tomorrow. Which, believe me, I'm not complaining. I'm actually happy to get out of here. Yeah, I think I did everything. Okay, before I switch accounts or anything like that, we should do a free quest. Try to summon someone that has the tier 3 drop, because obviously I don't have the CE for that. And was it tier 2 and tier 3? I think that's tier 1 and tier 3. I can't, my eyesight is failing me. I think that's that. I can't really see. I think this is the tier 3 thingy. I'm not 100% sure. So this is a sad instance where I could show off how I do my thing where I don't worry about 3-turning, I worry about bringing as many max CEs and stuff as possible, but I could actually easily 3-turn this and still bring max bonus and everything, but let's not do that. Just because I don't think anyone wants to see double scatty right now. Or any of the things in between that. Have I been streaming for 3 hours? Jesus. What do we want to do here? I'm pretty sure the event bonus servants only give damage up, so I don't really need to bring them if I don't want to. So another team that I have that works really well is, there's various variations of it, I kind of mix it up some, but there's so many free quests, especially Berserkers and Lancers, but even so that's not that, is I make this unit just a unit that can turn 1 NP or something like that, or I just make it my own, one of my various units that could turn 1 NP. There we go. All 3 of these could, clear 1 wave on their own, right? You have Chakra trying to blow up the first one, and then she's buffing the other 2, then Mordred or Arthur blows up the second wave, and then Mordred blows up the third wave. And then if you need extra damage, you can bring the Switch Mystico to bring in another buffer at the end or something like that. I can clear so many free quests like that if I want to, but let's not do that. Trying to think what I want to do though. Yeah, he could phase tank it because Mordred is a dragon, and in lore, Siegfried takes less damage from that people that have like the dragon alignment, and he also's got, you know, his armor that reduces the NP damage by some. Like, it would still hurt him. It's not like he's not gonna just brush it off like nothing happened. But if it's like fully, you know, normal Siegfried, no weird shit going on, he could definitely face tank it, like for sure. Like, and I don't think it would really fuck him up either. It would, like, yeah, that hurt. Like, you know, that hurt a bit. You know, it's like that was a blow to the gut, right? But then what he could also do is he could use his NP to offset it, and then he's totally fine. It wouldn't even harm him at that point. If he used his NP and then Mordred used her NP, Siegfried's not gonna. He'll be fine. If it's like totally normal circumstances. And same for Excalibur. I think he can survive Excalibur. Excalibur is obviously stronger than Mordred's NP, but it's not so much stronger that I don't think it's gonna make up for. Like, it would, if Siegfried just face tanked Excalibur, I think that would really hurt him, but he would survive it. But then if he offset Excalibur with his own NP, now for plot reasons, he could just generically have it, you know, kill him or fuck him up or not. But I mean, logically, if you look at what the skills do in the numbers, he should be totally fine if he uses his NP as well. Yeah, I guess you could give Excalibur to somebody else, but I don't think Artoria would be okay with this. Also, I don't know if they could actually use it. So, Bedivere versus Siegfried, that would actually be kind of an interesting one. Yeah, Richard's Excalibur though is really different ultimately. Richard probably would fare a lot better against Siegfried, not only because he's not a dragon, but because he's so fast. If you try to like get an attack in on Siegfried's weak point, Richard is one of the better servants for doing that. Not that Siegfried is just going to sit there and let him do it, but still. Yeah, it is so lame that they didn't really use Siegfried, man. He got like a little bit of screen time, but not much. There's a lot of good things about Apoc, and some of like the characterization of the characters, at least in the books, is quite good. But a lot of the characters were kind of used poorly, and there's a lot of plot points aren't great and things like that. Like, it has problems. Yeah, very similar to why people like Arash, honestly. I think Siegfried is kind of in the same vein as that, very much so. I kind of want to use Siegfried right now. And Siegfried was also the first he was the first non-Artoria clone Saber. Every Saber up to that point, back in the day, every single one of them was an Artoria clone. He was the first one that wasn't, and then he instantly got yeeted out of the story. Honestly, I kind of want to just see cool NP animations. And the first two that come to mind that I want to see right now would be these two. The other one I'd like to see would be Horsebindo, but he's on my other account, so... Like a... And then Hans, there we go! That's a team. Can you imagine these guys working together? Like, what the fuck? And then we'll, of course, get Ku and Angrabon. We won't give anyone the damage CE. We'll just be like the really generic. Okay, to make Hans, let's try to get some crit damage in while we're messing around here. So we'll do 20-30, makes it pretty easy. Yeah, that'll help. Yeah, Sigurd has got a whole different stuff going on. He is definitely not as tanky as Siegfried, definitely not. But his runes are quite good, so that's a whole different... That's a whole different thing that gives him a lot of other advantages and stuff. This is not Pokemon music, this is from Castle Crashers. Doesn't really matter who we give his third skill to. Honestly, Siegfried has a lot of offensive power, it's just he never got the little chance to show it. I mean, his NP, although it's not the strongest and hardest hitting NP ever, it's pretty hard hitting and it's also spammable, so, you know, there's some good stuff there. And he's a pretty good swordsman, like, he really does know how to smack a bitch. Like, Achilles made him look like a peasant, but that's because it's Achilles. That is so much worse in the book and the manga, too. Like, Achilles just wrecks Frankenstein and Siegfried there. Where in the anime, it's like a 5-second fight. It'd be nice to see Sigurd and Siegfried in the same story, like in an actual, like, official, you know, book or anime or whatever. Kind of interesting. I mean, there's a lot of sabers that don't do a beam ultimately. You got Sitting Master and all that. Caesar, Okita, obviously. I mean, even Sigurd's not technically a giant beam either. You got Benny. Like, I don't know what you call Bennies, but it certainly isn't a giant laser beam. Funnily enough, although Lancelot's NP in the game is not a giant laser beam, he can use his NP as a giant laser beam if he wants to. Alright. Unfortunately, these aren't dragons. What's your favorite ruler? I don't know. I've never really thought of that. None of them, I mean, I like a lot of rulers, but none of them like really stand out as like, oh my god, I super love this unit or character. Yeah, I guess Zeus, but he's not normally a ruler. But yeah, if you want to get technical in FGO, then I would say Zeus. But yeah, it doesn't. How much of that quite counts? I don't know what you mean by yay or nay with gameplay. Like, his gameplay exists, sure. Like, no, he's not. It's not real. It's counterfeit. It's fake. Much like my 4-star tier list video, it's a counterfeit. Then somebody thinks I'm being serious. That looks so cool. I forgot to show up crit stuff. I could have shown up Siegfried crit stuff last time. I wasn't paying attention. I'll do it here. The sad thing is, though, if I crit and make one, I don't have a Buster Crit stuff, but it's like if I turn them into Romans, they'd probably be dead, so I wouldn't get the bonus. We don't really actually have the cards to show anything off cool here. I'm sad. The Roman Dragon thing is pretty crazy. I love that NP so much, man. It's so cool. It's absolutely one of my favorite NPs. That's some damage. Jesus.
人の輝き、ロマンたるローマのそれ。
Oops, I killed my music. Alright, well, I'll play the old account a little bit. I actually I did not finish this event on my old account back in the day. I forgot. So I really should make sure I get it done. That way, I get the grail and stuff. I'll keep going a little bit, Rexens. I'm not gonna like stream for like way longer, but we'll use up some AP. But look at that, we used one apple, which we absolutely didn't need to. Like, if I could have done all of floor 1 and never used that apple, because like through the rest of the day, my AP would have regenerated enough to do what we did. So like, it just, and I made it up to the time gate and did all the side content. That way, you know, I wouldn't have needed apples. It's like that's why I have so many. I'll have to stop streaming soon anyway because I need to eat. Hot dog buns only last so long, man. Yeah, I like BlazBlue a lot. I don't really like cross-tagging gameplay-wise. I think it's kind of terrible, but I like the other BlazBlue games a lot. And I like the characters and the music and all that stuff. Yeah, I really don't like cross-tags gameplay at all, but well, like it's way too simplistic. It's BlazBlue for dummies, right? They took a really fun, interesting, and okay, look, there is a degree of making things more simple that is fine, right? Like there's some stuff in the normal BlazBlue games, you have like one-frame links and stuff, so that's not necessary, right? But that's not the depth that's missing that I have that I have a problem with. It's the control scheme and everything else, and like the amount of moves available to you is so dumbed down, right? BlazBlue is the original games are so fun to play because the characters basically have their own game engine going on underneath the hood, and they feel so different to play, and it's really fun to learn and all that. And yes, there is, like I said, some like arbitrary barrier to entry stuff that's unnecessary, like some of the one-frame links and two-frame links and stuff that's kind of silly, but for the most part, you know, the under the hood stuff I think is really good and makes BlazBlue a lot more fun. And then it has all the hit confirming stuff that's good. Where cross tag is like super dumbed down and it's like BlazBlue light and it has a control scheme designed for like a baby that's never played a fighting game ever. And if you do play a lot of fighting games, it's just really frustrating. You know, I like the characters and everything, but mechanically, I don't like cross tag at all. It's actually one of my least favorite fighting games ever. It's not my least favorite fighting game ever, but it's up there. Which I'm not happy about because I really like BlazBlue, so it's not like I want it to suck. Yeah, DBZF has a lot of stuff I don't like in it as well, but Cross Tag has a lot of the same stuff. I actually like Tekken. I don't like the cast a whole lot, but a lot of the I haven't played every Tekken game, but the Tekken games I have played, there's like a big emphasis, because the combos are shorter in most of their games, there's like a big emphasis on the mix-up and the mid-game and that kind of stuff, which is actually, I like. That's really good. I actually like that about a lot of Tekken games. They do have combos and stuff, but it's not like as crazy as what you might see in like BlazBlue. So I want to get Achilles and 100 face Bond, but this is a horrible event for that for the most part, because you fight assassins so much. DBZF has good things about it, but it definitely has a lot of dumbed down stuff that I'm not a fan of. And again, I really have to stress this, I'm not some guy that's like super elitist and gatekeeping and all that. I'm okay with some, like when fighting games make certain aspects of themselves easier and stuff. I think a lot of fighting games have really arbitrary, difficult combos that's a barrier to entry that has nothing to do with actually being good at the game, right? However, combos and under the hood stuff is still important. because for hit confirming, if you don't have any level of hit confirming, people can just spam, or like they'll finish their combo like they normally would, even if the person's blocking. You need to be skilled enough to recognize, oh hey, I started this combo, but they're blocking. I need to not just autopilot do the same combo that I would do hit or miss, right? Like that's important. And there's a lot of like if you look at BlazBlue, the way Carl plays, just mechanically the way you're interacting with the controller, is so different from how like Hakumen plays or Hazuma plays or something like that, and that adds a lot of fun to the game and adds a lot of depth and stuff to the game, which is really good. And a lot of Arc System Works more recent games have really stripped a lot of that out and have super dumbed down the mechanics and stuff. And like for example, you can have a game that has combos that are fair to execute. Yeah, you still need to remember like what the right buttons are. You can't just mash or anything. But then like they don't need to have like these crazy frame perfect timings and stuff to pull them off. Like I think that's completely arbitrary, right? You can have interesting inputs and stuff like that to make the characters unique and different and allow you to have to learn things and figure things out and that kind of stuff. But then you don't need these arbitrary, oh, but if you hit the button just a little too soon or a little too late, it's not going to work, and that kind of, that's silly. And there's a lot of that in a lot of fighting games, and I think it's just ultra arbitrary. And if that goes the way of the dodo, I don't care. Like I literally don't care. Because the meat of like the skill in a fighting game is like the decisions you make in the mix-up. Like you're trying to trick your opponent, make them think you're trying to play this way when you're actually playing that way, and stuff like that. That's the meat of a fighting game. And there's a bit more to it than that. There is reaction. You need to react to what the opponent is doing. You need to react to, oh, he's blocking, so I need to not autopilot this combo. I need to try to do something else that's better to do when my opponent is blocking, so I'm not going to be vulnerable. That's a huge skill and is extremely important. You need to know like what defensive options make sense in what context, although there are some fighting games that don't really give you defensive options, and those games suck in my opinion. But there's a lot more to fighting games than just like the mind games and the mix-up, but it's a huge part of it. And I think a lot of people are unable to get that enjoyment out of a fighting game because it does have this like really rigid learning curve that's, like I say, pretty arbitrary. But some of it is not arbitrary. Some learning curve is necessary to make sure people are being skillful and not mashing, and make sure people are hit confirming, and they give you mix-up options. You need to learn combos and stuff to have mix-up. If there's no combos, there's no well, that's not entirely true. There can be mix-ups without combos, and there are some fighting games that literally have no true combos beyond like 1 or 2 hits, and those can actually be very, very interesting. So, like dive kick. That dive kick is almost a meme, but that game actually has a lot of depth in it, even though you have 1 attack, right? Where there's a lot of fighting games that have actually less depth than that game. Generally my favorite balance, and fighting games like this are very rare, which saddens me greatly. I like fighting games generally where the combos are medium to short, not like short, but like kind of in the medium, but range. I don't like, because BlazBlue, I think, and Guilty Gear take it a bit too far. Sometimes the combos are just way too long, especially at high levels of play, and it's just that's not really fun. You win 1 exchange at neutral, and it results in you taking out 70% of the enemy's life. I don't like that. I definitely like the more, because I don't like, I can enjoy games that have very short combos or no combos, because it's all about neutral and stuff. But like I said, there's a lot of things that combos add to a game when it comes to mix up intentionally, dropping a combo to go in for like another combo for more damage, and just, like I said, mix up, and hit confirming. Hit confirming is such a big part of why I think combos are important. So I like medium combos, but unfortunately most games either have basically no combos, or they have incredibly long combos. And I hate this, right? Because like I say, I much prefer when it's more in the medium range. And a lot of times when there are games that have more medium range combos, then I don't like them in a lot of other areas. Like I don't think they do a very good job of giving you proper defensive options or proper offensive options, or like they're just other aspects of like more fundamental stuff that I'm just not happy with in the game. So very rarely do I find a game where I'm like, wow, this is actually kind of really good, and it's like the right balance of things. Because I don't know why, I feel like the industry just really favors super stupid fucking long combos. And I guess it's because it's a way for people to feel really skilled without actually having to learn the really hard. Because like pros obviously are doing all the really high level stuff with the mind games and all that stuff. You know, how many times they have to have these exchanges might change based on how much combo damage they can do. But honestly, the overwhelming majority of players are going to be average, of course, right? Most people can't be above average because that's not what above average means. And so most players are going to be at mid levels of play. And mid levels of play in most fighting games, it does not come down to who is the better mechanical player. It just doesn't. At mid levels of play, fighting games normally come down to who's playing the better character for the matchup and who has memorized their combos the best. Because a lot of people at mid levels of play will have, you know, they'll know their combos, but not like perfectly. They're going to mess them up, and they're not pros, right? And so whoever is able to consistently pull off their combos properly will win, even if they're losing at neutral more. Right? I say that all the time at mid levels of play in fighting games, where one player is actually doing better mind games and is actually predicting the opponent much better, but they're struggling more with doing their combos properly. So when they land a hit, they're doing, you know, maybe 20 to 30% of the enemy's life, maybe even less, depending on the game. And the other guy is doing like, you know, 40 to 50 to 60% of his opponent's life when he lands a hit, right? I don't like that. That's lame. And yeah, at high levels of play, that doesn't really happen. But most people are never going to get to high levels of play. Overwhelmingly, most people are not going to get to high levels of play. Even at mid to high levels of play, it's still a huge thing, right? And I don't care for that. And I think mid combos find the right balance of rewarding. You still should learn your combos and know what you're doing and know when you're like, oh, okay, he's blocking, I need to not do the combo. Or hey, it landed, I need to do the combo, right? It still rewards that. And it still rewards, you know, knowing how to execute properly. But then it also still, you know, massively rewards doing well, you know, with mix-up and mid-game and all that, even at mid levels of play, not just at high levels of play. So that's where I really prefer it, so. But games like that are pretty rare, so. But honestly, I think some people actually prefer games where they don't have to get actually really good at them. Like, you see this in MMOs all the time, where people, they might say they want a skillful game, but what they actually want is, I want to be able to put in more hours into the game and get better gear than everyone, and then shit stomp people that are actually better at the game than me, but I have better gear than them, so I win. That's overwhelmingly what people want in MMOs. Like, it's really obvious when you look at how people actually, what MMOs people play and why they play them, and like who PvPs and who doesn't and stuff. Like, overwhelmingly, people want to be able to basically get an unfair advantage on other people through not being better at the game. That's very common. Most people actually don't want a fair and balanced playing field. And I will say, sometimes it is fun to have an ecosystem. I think Dark Souls does a good job of this because it really fluctuates, right? Like, the PvP is all over the place. When you invade somebody, sometimes the host is going to be really skillful, sometimes they're not. But then the host normally is going to have more health than you, which that can be a bad thing. Sometimes that's not good for the game, but that's a different matter. But sometimes the host is going to be unskillful, but they'll have friends, and so now you're outnumbered, right? Like, and then sometimes you're going to have situations where the host is really skilled and has phantoms, so now you're super fucked, right? Like, it just, it's all over. There's a whole mixture of things, and you'll have invaders that twink and have an unfair advantage over the people they're fighting, but then that person has phantoms with them, so it kind of evens out, and maybe normally they'll favor the host again. But then you have some of the invaders won't twink, and they're actually invading with like really legit gear for the level range, right? But then they fight a host that's a twink, right? So it's all over the place, and that can be bad, but it makes things interesting and really different because the spectrum is just all over the goddamn place with, like, you know, people's individual power, like their stats and everything, and then how good they are, and then if they have allies or not, and then if you use mobs or not, what zone is it, right? It gets really wild, and I actually feel like Dark Souls and Demon Souls and all that actually feels more like an MMO than most MMOs. Like, if you actually get active in the online part of those games, they have more interesting and like old school like interactions, like having an actual ecosystem where you have like hunters, prey, and protectors and that kind of thing. Most MMOs don't allow for that kind of thing anymore, right? Like, it's not a thing, and it's also a big part of it. This is really random, but a big part of it is because most games now have PvP and PvE servers. So you don't have victims anymore, right? Anyone that's a victim and doesn't know how to be good at PvP or doesn't want to be good at PvP plays on a PvE server, the Care Bears, right? And then everyone that's like really into PvP is on a PvP server. So anytime you PvP someone, they're always a PvP nut, right? Which it's fun to fight other PvP nuts sometimes, but sometimes you want that ecosystem of, oh wow, the host has no idea how to PvP, but then he's got other people around him trying to help him, right? Like that whole ecosystem doesn't exist much in video games anymore because they're basically designed to not allow it, right? Anyway, it's so easy to pick your poison. Sometimes I desire the game. It's actually fun to be on both sides of it sometimes, especially. And it depends on the game. Some games, you know, it's not going to be fun if it's like always like that. But like a lot of like the old school MMOs, like what was it called, like Ultima, I guess, and stuff like that. You know, they really had that like that kind of ecosystem. And Dark Souls does have it. It's one of the only games that still does have something like that. And that's one reason why I love the multiplayer so much. See, in my opinion, forced PvP is actually incredibly important to game design, depending on the game. Some games, it makes no sense to be a forced PvP game, and people should be able to enjoy it however they want. Like I am not advocating that every game ever made needs to have forced PvP. I think that's a fucking terrible idea. You know, PvP in Animal Crossing, boys, right? Like no. But there are some games where they are designed ground up to be what I'm explaining, to have this ecosystem of prey hunters, but then protectors to protect the prey, and then that middle ground, and then hunter versus hunter, and that kind of. Some games are designed to be that. And if you're trying to make a game like that, you have to have forced PvP. Because if you give people the option to have PvP on or off, you're not going to have that ecosystem. It's going to die, and it's just going to be hunters versus hunters. And that does not make a very MMO-ish real world, you know, it doesn't give that feeling of like an open world or any of that stuff, right? And it doesn't like add the variety that you want for a game like that. And ultimately, this is not trying to gatekeep, but it's just a fact. That kind of game is just not going to be for everyone. Like a game like the original Ultima, because Ultima changed eventually. They used to have that ecosystem, and then they made PvP and PvE servers, and then it died. And it actually pretty much killed the game. Some people are just not going to like a game that has like that forced, you know, PvP element, where even if you're not good at PvP, there's other things to do. You know, the game attracts you with these other things to do because they're trying to make you pray. That's the thing, they're trying to make you pray. That's what Dark Souls is trying to do. It's trying to make the people that only care about PvE, they're trying to make you pray. But what they're also trying to do is they're trying to incentivize you to protect yourself, right? Very much so. They're trying to teach you, you're prey right now. Get better so you're not prey anymore. Or get protectors like, you know, blue sentinels and that kind of stuff to help you. That's pretty much what Dark Souls is trying to do, and I think that's good. Now, that's not going to be for everyone. That's just not going to be for everyone, and that's okay, right? But you have to also see the flip side, where if you don't have forced PvP in some games, that's going to make that game just not for other people, right? Some games, if they don't have forced PvP and they allow that split, it's going to make the game a very different, and it's gonna make it not appeal to certain demographics. So that's why I think it's important to have games like Dark Souls, because it's the only way to get that kind of game to exist, right? So it's like the variety is good, is kind of what I'm getting at, because again, it's not like every game needs to be that. Every game does not need to be like Souls, of course not. And yeah, I know it was Souls, although the game does not try to make it have an offline experience, right? It automatically connects online. They're trying to like make you not even realize you're online and then you get invaded. That's what they're trying to go for. But you can obviously just make it go offline, and then you can see this is the complaint I really don't like. I've seen this many times from people, and I have absolutely no respect for this opinion. I don't think you should be like thrown in jail because you have this opinion. I don't hate you as a person if you have this opinion, but I think this opinion is terrible, and I can't say I have respect for it when I don't. I do not have respect for this opinion. I see a lot of people that say they don't like that they can't have the co-op without the PvP, right? They basically want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be able to play in offline mode, but then still be able to summon people to carry them through the game and not have any risk of being invaded. That is stupid, right? And that is so against the design of the game. And Miyazaki has even said this. The whole reason they put invading in Demon Souls was because co-op trivialized the game so much, right? And it did not give you the experience that like the game was designed for. And it's fine to make your own experience and stuff, of course, but like the designers are obviously going to try to put their own design in the game, and the world is supposed to feel oppressive, and the world is supposed to be scary. You're not supposed to feel like this is autopilot and I can just beat the boss, lol, right? And their way of offsetting that is adding invaders. If you want co-op, you are going to have PvP. That is fundamental to the game's design, and the game would lose something if you took it out. If you allow people to have co-op and no PvP, that would fundamentally hurt the game experience from a lot of people. And not only that, it's not what the developers set out to make. And again, that means for some people, it's like, this is not for me. This is not my style of game, which again, is fine. But you have to accept not every game is going to be for you. There's a lot of games that I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. There's so many games like that. I was just talking about fighting games. There's more streamlined fighting games with the really simplistic controls and everything. Those aren't for me. But I'm not going to argue that they shouldn't exist. That's insane, right? I don't really care for BlazBlue Cross Tag, But I have no problem with it existing. I'm glad it exists. Although I wish it wasn't BlazBlue specifically, when the other BlazBlue games are, you know, really a lot more mechanically deep, and then now there's one that's not. That's kind of betraying the series. But the fact that a game like it exists does not bother me in the slightest. Because, you know, I feel like we've gotten to this point in the industry, especially because of like games journalism, where people think everything has to be for everybody, which is stupid. It's like Cuphead does not need to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to enjoy Cuphead. But guess what? The people that do enjoy it are going to enjoy it a lot more than these homogenous, wide net games that are designed to be kind of fun for everyone, but not super appealing to anyone, right? I'm actually so tired of how many games are trying to appeal to everyone. They're trying to appease the hardcore fans. They're trying to appease the casual fans. They're trying to appease the RPG people. They're trying to appease the action people. Like, for fuck's sakes, make a game aimed at a specific thing, right? Because then you can actually make that group happy, and it's what they really want instead of what they kind of want. The music does know indeed. Because, you know, a lot of people want a hardcore experience, or a lot of people want an RPG experience, or they want a casual experience. Right? Like Cuphead absolutely is not for everyone. Some people are gonna fucking hate that game, and that's okay. There's plenty of legitimate reasons to not enjoy that game. But then there's a lot of people, well, that is the exact game that they have been waiting for, and there's almost no other games like it because the industry is full of cowards nowadays. And so they're so happy to have a game that actually is, like, you know, up their alley and what they want, right? So I want more of that. I wish more games were more tailored to a specific thing, and like, yeah, this is for these kinds of people, and this is, you know. And there's gonna be crossover, of course there's gonna be crossover. You know, games like Dark Souls, are even with their forced PvP, they still appeal to a variety of type of players. And that's good. That's what gives you that hunter, protector, prey, you know, dichotomy. That's why that exists, is because it does appeal to different people that are more into co-op, or more into PvP, or more into a mix of these things, or more into just the PvE, or just into the boss fights, or just into making the RPG elements for making the builds and the min-maxing and everything. It appeals to a lot of different kinds of people, and there's some crossover. There's a lot of crossover, but that's what makes it good. But it's now Dark Souls may appeal to a lot of different things, but it doesn't try to appeal to everything. There are certain things. There are certain, like, check boxes that they're like, no, we're not trying to appeal to that. We're not doing that, right? Because it clashes with appealing to this other thing, right? And I think, hey, Marks, there's a lot of game design like that. You can't please everyone, right? You really can't. You got to pick and choose what kind of game you're making. Wait, what are you talking about, King? What game are you talking about? Hey, Alan, thank you for the resub. 3 months. I said 3 months. 3 months. Thank you, man. 3 baldies. Let's go. See, my issue is Sekiro. There's a lot of things I like about Sekiro, but it's still not really for me, just because it hits a lot of checkboxes that I don't care about, and it admitted a lot that I do. Like, from what I've seen of it, mechanically, you know, like from a PvE standpoint, like the PvE boss fights, they're done very well, right? And I'm sure from a mechanical standpoint, I would enjoy those. But there's a lot of other games that I can get that from, like Ninja Gaiden Black, for example, right? So I'm more likely to play that than I am to play Sekiro, because Sekiro, you know, it has a lot of things I don't like. I don't really like the weeb aesthetic. It's not like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's not my shtick. And like those kinds of games that From makes, I mostly play them for the, you know, the PvP and the co-op and all that whole, you know, connected experience thing is like the whole reason I play them. And so Sekiro is like, yeah, really interesting gameplay that I'm sure I would enjoy, but I can get that from a lot of other games, and it has an aesthetic I don't like, and there's no character customization, which I really don't like. That's a huge negative for me. And then I also don't like the character you have to play as. Like, I just don't care about him at all. He looks like a total square. I'm just like don't care. And you know, and everyone's a weeb, so you know. So it's just not really for me. I will play it someday. I'm actually surprised I haven't played it yet. The main reason I haven't, I'm always like, oh, I'll wait for it to go get a nice sale, and then I'll get it then. But it hardly ever goes on sale, and when it goes on sale, it's like, it's not a sale. It's like, it's still really expensive, right? They normally like take it off. I think the most I've seen it off is like 35%. Normally it's like 15 or 10. They just will not put that game on like a decent sale. Like it's always pretty expensive. So I think it might have been actually kind of cheap recently, but I forgot. I think that the summer sale was a bit cheaper. Even then, though, I think it was like 35 bucks or something. And basically, it's just, it's not, what I see of it I don't value enough for the price that it's always at. I just don't, because it doesn't have that multiplayer aspect. It doesn't have the character customization, you know. So it's, and if I really want that hardcore, you know, just PvE experience, I generally would just rather go play Ninja Gaiden Black. So I've not finished Neo, but I played a good chunk of it, and I did really enjoy the gameplay of it. My issue with Neo is, hey, thank you for the raid, man. Chaos, thank you, dude. Main issue with Neo was like the core gameplay was really good, like the actual mechanics with the bosses were really good, the movesets and the weapons were good, the way you, like the gimmicks on the bosses were good, that was all good. And although the aesthetic was really weeby, they gave you an armor set that was just Western armor, and you could get it at the beginning of the game, and it had a system where you could have the appearance of one armor set with the stats of another. So you could look like a just typical medieval knight, so I was good with that. It's like, okay, I get to go murder a bunch of weeb monsters by looking like a knight. I'm okay with this, right? So that was fine. The issue I had with it was the RPG elements were not done very well, and they were completely tacked on. That game is like designed... Oh yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for the raid again, though, but yeah, no worries. That game was like designed from the, like to be an action game more like Ninja Gaiden, really, and have these like, you know, boss fights that are really handcrafted and everything. And the RPG elements did two things that were both super negative. One, you could over level bosses and over stat bosses, get gear and stats that were so high that you could trivialize the boss if you wanted to. I don't like that. And then you can do that. You can do that in a lot of games, and that's not the end of the world. It's not. I'm not a huge fan of that, but that's not the end of the world, right? Because I can just not do that. I can just not over level things. Although I'm always worried whenever there's like RPG elements like that. I'm always worried that I'm going to accidentally over level something. And I'm going to like, oh, and I won't even realize it, right? I'm always scared of that. Like I play a new Souls game, I'm always worried I'm going to over-level something. But then the other side of it is also, you can have the reverse problem where your stats are way too low and you're to make the boss fight reasonable. Although it may be possible to beat it without getting hit, it's just not reasonable, especially for a new player playing it for the first time. And then you'll have to do loads of grinding to get the gear you need or the levels you need. And that's shitty too, because that's a waste of time. It's literally a waste of time. And Dark Souls, I think, does a really good job of balancing these things and finding the right balance of like how hard it is to level, how much you need levels. And I think they find a really good balance. I don't think Neo did. I think the RPG elements really get in the way of Neo. It's possible for them not to get in the way, but I think they very much did get in the way. And that drastically hurt my enjoyment of that game. And it just felt like a chore. Like I really liked the boss fights, but everything else felt like a chore. I enjoyed that. I don't remember that game well enough. I'm not sure if anyone in my chat right now was actually here when I streamed it. But I remember there was a boss fight. It was like a bonus boss you didn't have to beat. I think I had like a little spirit tiger with him or something. It was decently early in the game, and I'd only been playing it for a little while. But I remember I did him, and I was a little bit under-leveled. So I had to like... I could only afford to get hit like once or something without healing. And like so if I got like hit twice in a row, I would just die. And I remember fighting that boss, and because there was no trash before the boss, you could just restart it and do it. I enjoyed learning that boss, like the boss patterns and stuff on that guy so much. I had so much fun fighting that guy, actually. And there was a few bosses like that later, I remember, that I really enjoyed. But I remember I enjoyed that one a lot, specifically, but those were really fun. Like, mechanically, I thought that game was great. Honestly, I have really no complaints about it. It's just the RPG elements I thought were shit, and the game would have been way better without them. Because also, not only were they shit and not tuned very well, unlike Dark Souls, but like, they didn't matter. Like, it's like, if you find an axe, it was like every other axe in the game. Where like in Dark Souls, you might find an axe that has a slightly different moveset, different scaling, different, you know, where every weapon of the same type in Neo has the exact same moveset. So why bother? Why not be like Ninja Gaiden, where you just have one weapon that's that weapon, and that's just that. It's that moveset with that stat line that never changes, right? And then all the enemies are scaled to that stat line. That would work so much better for Neo. Like that would work so much better for that game. And like games can have you can still have side grady stuff, but not have scaling, right? Like you can definitely add RPG elements that give you side grade customization, and that's good. I love that stuff. But you can add customization and different playstyles and stuff without, you know, linear progression and all that. And Souls has a lot of linear progression, but they just handle it, I think, a lot better ultimately. I just realized I brought a horrible team for killing this guy. But gotta get that bond, man. I played Monster Hunter World, and I enjoyed it a fair amount. Again, though, I feel the same way, where all the RPG elements I just felt like were busy work that were in the way of me actually enjoying the game. But I liked the armor, I liked the monsters, I liked the music. You know, I liked how different, like super different the the weapons played from each other. I thought that was incredibly enjoyable. They basically each had their own game. Like each of the different weapons, and that was super fun. And I could play it co-op, and so I enjoyed it solo and co-op. It was like really easy to enjoy both, and you could go between the two really easy. So I really enjoyed it. DPS scatty, I mean, we could do that here if we wanted to. But yeah, I think you have to be very careful with RPG elements. At least in my book, I find a lot of times RPG elements can just get in the way and be a needless... I like handcrafted things where it's like, okay, you're supposed to have this much health so you can be hit this many times by the boss. You know, and it's going to take you roughly this many hits to kill the boss. You know, but when you shrink the stats and I can be way higher level or way lower level, that can get so broken. And sometimes you can make that work, but... yeah, I played Dragon's Dogma. I like Dragon's Dogma as well. The only problem I have with Dragon's Dogma, I think they handle the RPG elements better, aside from the New Game Plus. The New Game Plus is not handled very well. The problem I have with that game is the beginning is so boring. Oh my god, like gameplay-wise. There's fun stuff like in terms of the story and all that, but like the gameplay is really dull for the first chunk of that game. But the ending chunk is pretty good, and then the Dark Arisen content is phenomenal. Like I've never streamed that content. I need to at some point. Because I really stand by this. I think the Dark Arisen content is just fucking phenomenal, right? Like, it's so fun to, like, play that game. I remember when I first played it, I knew that I bought the version that had Dark Arisen. I never played Dragon's Dogma, and, but I knew I was buying, like, the expansion version of it that had this extra content, right? And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that until I play all the base game stuff. So I did all the base game stuff. I mean, New Game Plus and stuff, and I did all the side stuff. I did like the big hole in the ground stuff, which that kind of sucks. But you know, I did all that stuff. I did all the side quests I wanted to do, and then I got to the point where I really liked my character. I had all the items I liked. I found I streamed a chunk of it. I didn't stream the Dark Arisen stuff though. I need to though. I actually really do want to do that someday. I actually made St. George in that game. Yeah, and it was awesome. He actually looked pretty similar to St. George. It was great. Because Dragon's Dogma, you know, you're killing a dragon at the end. So, and you can get Ascalon. Ascalon is in the game. So yeah, I need to do more of that. Anyway, you know, the base game is pretty fun and all that, but you know, it's got some issues and it's got some grinding and it's got some easy bits and there's some, you know, some issues. But I got to the point where I'd gotten all the stuff I wanted from the base game. I'd beaten the Void Dragon a bunch. Oh my god, Rex, I forgot about that. Oh my god. Of course you remember that, Rex. Of course you do. Anyway, that was a moment. I need to set this up so I can show stuff like that up on stream though, so when chat's having a moment, we can kind of share in the experience. Oh, anyway, so you know, I found the gear that I wanted. There was like a nice mix of like being good gear, but also looked really cool. And same for my pawn. I had a pawn that looked really cool and had gear that was good and everything. And then I was like, okay, let's go do the Dark Arisen content. And it's actually scaled in a way that if you're super pimped out and you got everything, it's still gonna be hard and interesting and everything. So I go in there with all this awesome stuff that I'd built up and stuff from the base game. I go into this Dark Arisen stuff, and the Dark Arisen content is basically this massive just dungeon. It's just a big dungeon crawling experience, and it's huge, lots of bosses, lots of hidden stuff in it. It's very different from the base game. The base game is more open world with, you know, some kind of light dungeon elements and stuff. And I enjoy, and not only is it super awesome, it's got an awesome boss fights and it's super different, but when you beat it, the dungeon resets and gets a new layout where it's got like new enemies and the bosses are harder and a new final boss. And then so if you want to, you can just do it again and it's fresh again. It's great. Like I honestly, that's one of I have such fun memories of that. It's such a good gameplay experience. Like, you know, doing all that stuff in the base game and having it matter. Because one thing I felt like in Dragon's Dogma, the base game, it's like if you actually tried to get, you know, rare items and powerful stuff, it would make a lot of this stuff too easy. It'd make the regular game too easy. And you could do all that like class customization in that game, where like you basically could play as a warrior, but then you could actually then change your class to a mage, and you could unlock the mage passives, and then go back to playing a warrior and take those passives from the mage and combine them. You couldn't use every passive at once, but you could pick and choose the passives from the different classes and put them on your favorite class. And that it takes a while, but like it's so rewarding, and you can do all these crazy setups. Like you could be a Mystic Knight with all these like passives from like the other casters and stuff, and like do really unique things. And so by the time I went to Dark Arisen, I had, you know, gotten all the passives from like all the classes, and I'd had like the exact setup that I super liked and everything. And then the game's still hard. If you do that in the base game, the game's like too easy. But when you go into the Dark Arisen stuff, it's really good. I have so much praise for that game. I enjoy it a lot. Now there's cons to that game, like your pawns not shutting the fuck up. Like, holy crap. So I really stand by this. I think Dragon's Dogma is a much better experience if you only use your pawn and no other pawns until you get to the Dark Arisen content. Because one, the base game is not hard enough to call for you having an army of minions. It's just too easy. If you only have one pawn, you need to play pretty good. You gotta know what you're doing. That makes it more interesting. Also, you will have so much less goblin. It is weak to fire. Oh no, I dropped a penny. Right? There's so much less of that if you only have one pawn. And the only pawn you have control over is yours. And it can take a while to find like the right wisdom chairs and to get the settings right. Basically, you can sit your pawn down in an inn and slap them in the face and you can kind of customize their behavior, and you can kind of tell them, so, Bob, we've been adventuring together for a while, and it's been great. You know, you're doing all right. There's this one thing, though, where could you shut the hell up? Right? And so you can do that to your pawn, and so they don't talk as much. They still talk more than you might like, but they'll still talk a lot less. But you can't do that for other people's pawns. So if you summon other people's pawns, yours will be, you know, kind of silent. Everyone else is just like, goblin! Right? And all the time. I mean, all the time. And it's awful. So yeah, that definitely, that's an issue. And in Dark Arisen, I mean, in that content, they definitely talk less, and it's not as bad. But, Bob, the Great Pawn, yep, indeed. But yeah, I definitely think that game is a lot more fun if you just use your pawn and no one else's. Or you just go solo. That game is totally doable solo, but it's kind of fun to have a companion that you can change the gear and the passives on and stuff. So, you know, that's enjoyable. But the core game is going to be too easy if you summon friends' pawns. Outside of maybe very specific parts, there were a few parts that maybe it would be better. Like maybe you're fighting like some of the Arch Hydra. Although I normally one-shot that with the fucking special laser thing, but that fight is so long and boring. You're going to want the extra damage from pawns. So I would say on that one. I think Dark Arisen is scaled pretty well. Unless you're min-maxing like crazy, you can generally use a full roster of pawns and it'll still be fun and interesting. And also, they don't talk as much, so. Oh yeah, Assassin solo is totally a thing. Assassins were actually made for that. They gave them passives and stuff where they were like stronger when they were solo. I played the game that way before. You can like, you know, combine them with like Strider and warrior stuff, and that's actually really fun. I think a lot of the classes though can solo just fine, but yeah, Assassin was very good at soloing in that game. It was actually very enjoyable, especially because they were such a mobile class. They could like double jump and shit like that. So they were actually, I think the Assassin, if you like mixed in some of the passives from like Strider, or it was either you played Strider with passives from Assassin, I don't remember. But anyway, one of the, you know, dagger bow classes was gameplay wise probably my favorite if you actually got the right passives for them. It was just they had such variety in how they could kill things, and they had a parry system that was really fun and everything, so. I did enjoy the fighter too, though. Fighters were fun, just because aesthetically I really enjoy the like more classical knight look, or just like the big dude in armor, you know, that kind of stuff is always cool. I know we're wrapping up, give me a minute. I want to play that again now. The only thing that stops me is just the fact that the base game, like I said, is not nearly as good as Dark Arisen, and it's, you know, it's kind of a bit of busy work after you've already experienced it before. But yeah, it's an enjoyable game. It's also, I think, to its detriment, because it doesn't do it. It's not Dark Souls. It's not a Dark Souls game, right? But they kind of do the Dark Souls storytelling where there's a lot of plot stuff they just don't tell you unless you really pay attention and, like, you know, read a lot of hidden stuff. And, like, the main story will make no sense if you don't, like, really pay attention and find a lot of hidden stuff and all that kind of thing. I think the main story is actually kind of interesting when you do figure out what the lore actually is. But they should have just told a lot of it to you in a more straightforward way. I don't know if it was an accident or if they were trying to be like Dark Souls. I don't think, was Dark Souls even out back in the Dragon's Dogma? I don't think it was. Like, I don't know why they're so obtuse with the main storytelling. I don't get it. It doesn't fit that game in the slightest. But I definitely think that hurts the game a good bit. Because some of the story is actually kind of cool, but it's just told like pants. Yeah, I keep, I have two, another thing I don't like about Dragon's Dogma, and this is a huge mistake, I do not understand this. Especially because the way New Game works, and the way Hard Mode works and stuff, you can only have one save file. Which is insanity. I have no idea why that game only allows you to have one save file, it's just stupid. But you can kind of get around it and have two save files. You can basically go into the program files on PC anyway, and save like your save folder and go put it in a different folder and then make a new file, right, and then save that folder, and so then you could switch between the two, right? It's an annoying extra steps you have to take, but I honestly, I have no idea why they did that. I do not understand why they did that, especially because you can get so strong that, like, the New Game Plus is done kind of bad in that game, where basically it gives the enemies more attack, but it doesn't give them more health. And you can probably see why, if you're on New Game Plus 5, that's going to get pretty not interesting, right? That's a huge mistake. And they have like a hard mode where I think you can make them a bit tougher too, but again, it won't scale. The health won't scale when you get to New Game Plus and stuff. So I don't know how moddable it was on PC. I didn't look into that too much. I'm not sure. I know when it first came out, there weren't too many mods for it, but I don't know. Maybe since then they've added a bunch. I don't know. Why am I on turn 4 and I haven't used any of Scatty's skills and stuff? I feel like I could have already won by now. Like, what is happening? Yeah, Dark Souls has mods, but I'm not sure if Dragon's Dogma does. Probably has some. I would not expect it to have like a really dedicated mod scene, though. It was never as popular, and I don't think it was an easy game to mod, from what I understand. Yeah, it's never had the same following. It had a real cult following back when it was on console back in the day. But yeah, it doesn't have like the staying power that like Souls does. I know that the guy that makes Devil May Cry, and he's the same guy that makes Dragon's Dogma. Capcom originally I don't think was not going to allow him to make a Dragon's Dogma 2. But apparently they told him because you know he's like their most prominent game designer. They basically told him, okay, you can make Devil May Cry 5 or Dragon's Dogma 2, whichever one you want to make, we'll let you make. And he picked Devil May Cry 5, but I think they're probably going to let him make Dragon's Dogma 2 if he wants to, and I'm pretty sure he does want to, if I remember correctly. So hopefully we will get a Dragon's Dogma 2 someday, which could maybe add, I don't know, co-op. That game was begging for co-op. There was even co-op moves! Dude, it was nuts. There's literally co-op moves that you can't use with the pawns because the pawns are idiots. Like there was like the warrior could do like a shield throw where you could like have someone stand on your shield and you could like toss them really high in the air, and that could there's actually there's even a secret area you can get to that way, but the pawn won't actually grab the ledge or anything, so they won't use it. So you have to use like the mage thing to like use the ice like climbing thing to get up there instead, which is stupid. And there's like you could like launch someone up to grab a Hydra's head or something, but the pawns won't do it, so you can never use that stuff. Like, it's useless. It's obviously designed for co-op, right? It's so dumb, dude. I cannot believe that game does not have co-op. Oh yeah, they're making a Dragon's Dogma Netflix thing. I hope that's good. What is it? Is it anime, live action? What is it? I remember hearing about that, but I didn't look into it. But hopefully that does well, so that incentivizes them to make Dragon's Dogma 2, because they actually made a Dragon's Dogma MMO, but it was actually more like Vindictus, kind of, where it was like an action game that you could just happen to play with other people, and it used the same combat system. I think they dumbed it down some. But I heard that was like pretty good, but it never came to NA. It was only ever playable in like China or Japan or both or something, I'm not sure exactly. Anime-ish. So I mean, who's making it? Like, is it North American or is it Japanese? Like, what's the production? But yeah, hopefully that's good. I'm worried though because again, the storytelling in the game, I think it had some interesting lore and stuff, but it was told very poorly. So I'd be worried the anime would just be some cryptic bullshit, like trying to explain a lot of dumb shit that no one cares about. This event is extremely bland. It's awful. It's extremely, like, just linear and dumb and pointless. The one good thing I can say about this event is, like, the last couple of main story boss fights, that's like 3 or so, are pretty fun to mess around with, and they're pretty cool. And then like the final fight with Kama or Sakura, whatever the fuck you want to go with there, is a really cool fight. And then you know, it's got like a hard mode, medium mode, easy mode. Although none of them are easy, to be honest. But and that's cool. So I like that, right? But everything else about this event is terrible. Everything else about this event fucking sucks. And I guess the loot's pretty good too. The loot's nice. A ton of the game was cut, and they had a very short time to clean it up. That would probably explain a lot of the issues. Like a lot of like the stuff with the Duke is like not really explained unless you like really dig in. Like when he's screaming Eleanor when he's trying to choke a bitch, right? It's like none of that makes any sense if you don't like super pay attention and all that. So yeah, hopefully we get a sequel someday and they just expand on it, because honestly that game did a lot of unique things that I super enjoyed. Okay, I think we'll wrap up here instead of drooling over Dragon's Dogma, which I really am wanting to play that again now because it's good. If they ever like announce a sequel, we'll definitely play it then. Alright, how far on this are we for this account? Doesn't really matter, I can always play this off stream. So I think we gotta do this route and then like just these two, so we're almost done here. I really do want to make sure I get the Grail on this account, because I remember not doing it last year or 2 years ago or whenever the hell this was, and I was like, I'll just get it on the rerun, and so I have to actually do that. Alright boys. Thanks a lot for hanging out, everybody. Thanks for all the subs, all the resubs and new subs. Dude, I feel so, like, I feel like an imposter because I've been getting, like, a lot of new subs, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything to deserve it, but I do appreciate it. But, like, the stream's been, like, doing really well, at least by my standards anyway, and, I don't know why, but I guess I shouldn't complain. Alright, let's see what we got here. Is Cairo streaming? I feel like Cairo hasn't streamed in forever, either that or we're not ever streaming in overlap times. I was actually talking to him last night, and I should have been like, yo, where's the streams, man? We'll raid that blue guy. We raided him before, and he's streaming some FGO. Alright, well, hopefully we'll get through this maze event quickly, and it's done and over, and then the fucking anniversary, man. Like, I just hate that we have to wait until the 10th. Like, we have to wait so long, like, god damn it. But hopefully it'll be worth it. Anniversary is normally pretty hype, so. Alright, peace out, everybody. Cairo, wait for the Kiara banner. Yeah, that's what he's doing, definitely.